Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the beginning of this bootcamp, which we have been preparing for quite some time. We have been working in the background on creating a lot of content for you, trying to customize it as per your requirements, as per different type of people are joining from different experience level. We'll do a poll as well later on to identify and if there is any customization required. I'm assuming that you guys have seen our YouTube channel, and that's how you guys have, trusted us. You guys are ready to spend next 3 months with us, where we will take you through a journey. We will take you to a process, and we'll try our best to, hand over whatever experience we have with everyone. So yeah, I see a lot of messages in the chat. There is probably you can avoid good evening, good morning, and these sort of things. We try to keep it as much as professional as we can. If you have been joining a lot of boot camps or a lot of other courses, try to unlearn that process, and let's follow the professional one. Keep it to specific questions if there are any. And we will try to respect your time. You help us with the right questions, right stuff that need to be discussed, and we'll definitely try to respect everybody's time. All right. If people can go on mute, I see some few of them are have unmuted. We'll go through some of the basic housekeeping, some of the rules that we have for the bootcamp, and then we can proceed from there. Before we jump on to any of the material and all sort of things, bit of introduction about ourselves so that you guys can understand. Sometimes we don't reveal a lot of information about ourselves in the YouTube channel or that sort of thing. We try to, again, as I mentioned, we try to focus on the key concepts. We don't highlight what sort of salary we earn or what sort of salary can you earn, or those type of videos which attract people and get them views and that kind of thing. Most of the content that we publish is entirely short videos, crisp videos that you can learn quickly, maybe 5-6 minutes of your time. And for anything complex, that's not possible in those shorter videos. Then we do these boot camps, the complex projects. So small introduction about myself. My name is Sanjeev Kumar. I am based out of Sydney, Australia, and I am a DevOps and cloud architect. And I have close to 20 plus years of experience in the IT industry. I have worked with various different customers in what sort of maturity level they might have. Somebody who is starting in their DevOps journey, and somebody who is mature and trying to improve their DevOps and cloud posture. So whether it's focused on cost optimization or moving them to cloud migrations or DevSecOps, any sort of these are some of the areas that I have extensively worked in this. I'm joined by Saurabh Porwal, who is my senior, and I'll hand it over to you, Saurabh.
Yep. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you guys for trusting us. I know that we have been focusing on the YouTube channel. You must have seen it, some of the videos, and as Sanjeev said, so we try to bring in a little glimpse of ourselves in it, but not fully disclose it. So my name is Saurabh Porwal, and I live in Melbourne, Australia. So I worked with Sanjeev before, earlier in one of my projects. I've got more than 20 years of experience, and the last around 10-12 years of experience right into DevOps and in the cloud technologies. So I worked on AWS, I worked on Google Cloud, and I worked on lots and lots of different tools and into the DevOps arena. So I intend to bring all my knowledge and experience into this bootcamp. But I know that a lot of different people are at different stages of their learning. So some of them might be freshers. Some people who are joining in are more experienced, but probably not in DevOps and cloud. So we are trying to bring up a program which is easily understandable by everybody, so that everybody gets onto the same page. Now, in this process, because a lot of people are at different stages of their learning, so it might be possible that sometimes a few people might say that, oh, it is too basic, but that's all right, because we want everybody to come up to the same speed eventually at the end of the program. Now, how we have designed this program is we'll be working across all the different technologies. Each session we'll be talking about a specific technology in detail. We'll be having lots of question and answer. So it's not a one-way forum. So you are allowed, and we actually encourage you to ask as many questions as you can. Clear all your doubts. No question is silly. Even silly questions are welcome, because sometimes they do clear all the doubts. So don't hesitate if you even think that your question might be silly or something. Somebody might be just thinking that you're not really up to the mark. We don't judge you. We actually encourage people to ask questions. And even if it is not really relevant at that moment, so either we will then park it up to take it up later, but otherwise we welcome the questions. So this session in particular it's an extra session on top of whatever we will be delivering. So this session is just to give you all a focus on what the bootcamp contains. So this session is not really a part of all the teaching curriculum that we have, but it's to give an idea of what the prerequisites are. What do we understand by DevOps? Why do we use DevOps? What are the different tools and technologies associated with it? So this is more like an introductory session, and this is a session on top of what we are going to deliver. So we have close to more than 100 participants in here. I can see that we have got 73 at the moment. Some people might be joining in. All these sessions will be recorded, and it will be passed on to the different participants after this session is done. So before we actually start the session, maybe we can just kickstart it. Sanjeev, over to you.
Thank you, Saurabh. So we have brought in plan. This session, we want to assess what level of skill you are at, give you a glimpse of what we are offering. I know we did circulated a PDF, and we circulated a lot of information on TalkMate. We did live YouTube sessions as well to encourage people to join these bootcamps, because for us, doing these bootcamps or doing these sort of long programs are slightly difficult to getting time from the schedule and setting up these. So we wanted as much as people can join. So how it started, this bootcamp idea. So we'll be fully transparent. We are not like it's very raw kind of conversation. All our videos are raw. We never edit our videos that much. So we started offering complex projects basically. So in July and August month, we did a couple of complex projects, because our fundamental what we believe is that the best way to learn DevOps in cloud is to work on complex projects. Because basic projects, basic zero to hero courses that you guys attend or you would have seen people offering are just too basic in nature. That was the reason we started with complex projects. So we brought in slightly medium complexity projects, and some of the people did understand that, they followed it, they completed it. Those people really like the approach, and they are asking for more such projects also. But then there was a certain percentage of viewers who wanted to do projects. They believe that they have done some courses and they will be able to work on such projects, but they actually struggled. They were not very complex projects also, that industry, that all the practices that we follow in the company, we tried to make it simplified in terms of complexity, in terms of processes and all that sort of thing, but still people were struggling, which means that they were not ready for the industry as yet. And that would be reflected in their interviews and in their other steps that they take in the career. Maybe they are struggling in their meetings in the office. Maybe they are struggling in the certifications, or in general, talking to their colleagues in the DevOps and cloud space. So that's when the idea came that maybe we can start a basic bootcamp where it's very beginner friendly. We guide them on smaller projects rather than complex projects, which also means that we all have to be clear that this is not a sort of boot camp or that will take you to all sort of places, take you to moon and come back. So it's designed for simplicity, covers a lot of concepts, but at the same time, for you to be very, very successful, you will also have to do certain complex projects at some later stage. So we will start with basic smaller projects. We don't want to repeat that July and August month projects that are slightly complex. So we will start with simpler projects. Every session we do, there will be assignments at the end of it where you will be asked to work on some projects. And we'll discuss more of that in the slides and in the subsequent things that I'm bringing. But that's how the idea started, that we should do a simpler, beginner-friendly bootcamp. That's how we have been marketing it. We have been informing people that more of a beginner-friendly to cover a lot of concepts. But at the same time, we will do a bit of poll and we'll check where everyone stands right now, what's their objective, and we'll try to tailor the content if required. As I mentioned, we have experience in pretty much all these tools for multiple years, so we can tailor it very quickly. We can change things quickly if needed. So anything we discuss or we talk now can change slightly based on how we are performing, how you guys, how you people are. Yeah. Okay. Let me share my screen. You guys can see my screen?
Yes, Sandeep.
Yes.
So I know a lot of you would probably have our names and all. Avoid sending LinkedIn requests and all. We have a LinkedIn company or community page where we post a lot of content we get from different places. So you can follow this company page instead. And TopMate is where we are offering these. TopMate helps us to automate a lot of processes, and you all know our YouTube channel. So as I mentioned, why we are doing this bootcamp, because we understand that DevOps and cloud is very vast and a very specialized skill. It's not like Java, .NET, or any other skill set that we used to have, which will have a life cycle where we will be building something, testing, deploying, and there will be a bit of time and you are not directly working in the production. But with the DevOps and cloud area, you are actually working pretty much in the production environments, even critical non-prod environments. So it requires a bit of skill set, and the basic courses that we do are not sufficient to get to that level. But everybody has to start somewhere. So these are the boot camps. These are the projects that will kickstart your journey. So you will understand a lot of terms and technologies that we discuss. You will be able to participate in discussion, and basically we want to enable you to work on complex projects. That is our main objective from our side, that if you are given specification of a complex project, you should be able to break it down into smaller activities, smaller tasks, and try to accomplish that project. A complex project should not look like an impossible task to you. You should have a step-by-step process to break it down into activities and be able to work on it, or be able to work with a complex project in a team structure. And we also understand that in order to compete with different people, you need to build some sort of differentiating skills also. So we are trying to bring some skills in this boot camp, which will differentiate you from others. I know it's difficult to do that in a beginner-friendly boot camp, but we will try our best, and we'll discuss what sort of skills we are trying to bring, which some of the people don't learn, and they are used pretty much in the industry all over. Interviews are focused on the best practices in the industry. Basic courses usually don't cover that, but we will try to bring a basic project, and also what best practices can be followed in that project, how you can enhance that project. Saurabh will probably talk in the future that we will bring projects which are simpler, and then we will also have projects which are an extra step ahead. It's like additional steps to be done, which takes it closer to the industry best practices. So we'll follow that sort of approach. So there will be smaller things based on your experience. You will follow those small steps, and also complex stuff for people who want to try extra or who already have some experience. We want to ensure that you get hands-on experience and you build your own GitHub repository with your projects. Again, we don't want to just show some slides and that sort of basic stuff. We want you to do projects also in parallel and get some hands-on experience. Again, a lot of people are joining this who have some experience in IT, but they are switching from some other streams. So we want to enable them for DevOps and cloud as well. So you may be working in mainframe, test automation, network engineer, or any sort of thing. So the idea is, don't stay fresher. Freshers have slightly less respect in DevOps and cloud, I would say, because it has the access to your production. They have access to your higher environments. So the stakes are higher. So people are expected to behave like senior people. They should have experience. So staying fresher is very it's not advisable, but you got to start somewhere. And once you start building those complex projects, difficult assignments, those use cases that are used in the industry. So that would help you in interviews, in your certifications, in your meetings, and all sort of things. Okay, who this bootcamp is for? As I mentioned, if you are fresh graduate coming out of your college, because DevOps and cloud is very hot, you would have learned or heard this from most of your seniors or in the industry, number of jobs being there. So very relevant for you guys. We will try to bring a lot of our experience onto how things work in the industry. So even if you have not worked, we will try to take you to that process with these discussions that we are going to have in the next 3 months. If you are experienced professional and switching your career from DevOps, from any other stream to DevOps and cloud, could be DBAs, network engineers, business analysts. I know a few business analysts are going to join the bootcamp, few project managers, leads, and people who are switching from other streams. Some of them may not even work on some projects, but that's very specific to those people. They want to learn more about the DevOps and cloud culture, and mainly they want to improve themselves, but may not be looking for hands-on experience. A lot of junior DevOps engineers who have probably got the job, but want to brush up on their skills, want to revisit the fundamentals. And college students, some of the college students who are smart, who are, they want to get ahead in the game, they want to learn the upcoming technologies or things that are used in the industry in their college time itself. Because college education is not sufficient. Again, they don't cover these things that are used in the industry. There's a massive gap between what's being taught in the colleges and universities and what's used in the industry. So if there are smart students, it's relevant for you guys. But at the same time, we will make sure we'll try our best to make it relevant for you. And I will tell you, even if you don't fall, most of 90% of the people who have signed up will fall in this category. Even if you don't fall in any of these things, there are ways that how you can make best use of this bootcamp as well. All right, so we will talk about a bit of roadmap, what we believe is the right way to approach DevOps and cloud when you are starting from scratch. So we have created a small sort of roadmap. You can pick up some of the tools. You can, for example, you can pick up your cloud platform if you want to. You not necessarily you would be working on AWS, Azure, or GCP. So you can pick any one of them. We will be focused mainly on AWS in this bootcamp, but it's not necessary that the projects that you implement, the ideas that we discuss, the concepts that we discussed cannot be applied to Azure or GCP as well. Same with the second column, where you pick one between GitLab, Jenkins, Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions. So what we believe is that for people who are starting their journey, Jenkins is probably a good tool to start with. But in future, you may have to extend that knowledge. You obviously, by learning Jenkins, you will have some sort of idea how other tools work, but GitLab, Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions are slightly used extensively in the market as well nowadays, depending upon what kind of industry you are targeting. But Jenkins is good to start, good for your initial assignments. Git and Linux are mandatory. Doesn't matter which platform you choose, which path you choose. These are absolutely mandatory tools. And we have seen a lot of people struggling in these areas, or sometimes try to spend a lot of extra time in this. They try to master the Git, they try to master the Linux. While it's important, if you build extra knowledge, if you build good skills in Linux, yes, it will be helpful. It's a very top skill to have in the DevOps and cloud space, because most of your cloud infrastructure will be running Linux servers. But at the same time, from our experience, what we have found is that you are actually performing very few use cases using Git and Linux. So in Git, you are performing very limited use cases. As a DevOps engineer, you are not doing much complex scenarios. The Git flow is very extensively used. So branching and merging strategies, we are going to talk about that. Same for Linux. We have identified some 50 different scenarios that are extensively used, where you should focus on, which you can learn in probably less than a week's time. So those are the sort of shortcuts we will try to tell you in the bootcamp, where you don't spend a lot of time on the mandatory skills. But if you want to spend more time, learn it on the job, we will try to make sure that the projects that we are assigning you, the projects that will be discussed in this, have some sort of, they will obviously require Linux and Git knowledge as well. So you learn them on the job, basically, instead of spending a lot of time learning them upfront and not getting to the real DevOps and cloud tools. So Git and Linux we will discuss, and we'll give you some specific scenarios which are extensively used in the industry, which are very commonly used scenarios, which will help you to very quickly move on with these steps and move on to GitLab, Jenkins, or Azure DevOps, etc. We will focus mainly on Jenkins in this. We'll bring additional tools that are relevant close to Jenkins, like Artifactory, Sonar, Cube. So I have not mentioned them. Again, they are very relevant. Sonar and Artifactory will be discussed. We'll also discuss on certain security tools. We believe that you need to build differentiating skills. A lot of people, pretty much everyone you are competing with for a job, will have Jenkins on their resume. But you have Jenkins, Sonar, Sneak, maybe Veracode, some security tool also integrated. If you have Artifactory used in your projects, will give you an extra edge. Then in the center, we have the crux of the DevOps and cloud. Now, these are the tools that you just have to master. At least Terraform, Docker, Kubernetes, Ansible. Packer is again a skill that used industry-wide. A lot of companies use it. Every company needs base images to be created for their EC2 instances, for their auto-scaling groups, for their Kubernetes cluster. That's where Packer fits in. So whatever your base images you want to create, Packer can be useful. So this is, again, the second differentiating skill. Apart from dev security products, we'll bring Packer. But remaining 4, Terraform, Docker, Kubernetes, Ansible, is something you just have to learn all of them. Then you pick any one cloud. We will focus on AWS mainly. So this is the roadmap we have highlighted on our channel also multiple times, that we believe this is the right roadmap. There are few other tools, but not extensively used. Like people were asking yesterday's Puppet or Salt, those sort of tools. we believe Ansible is probably ahead in the game. Ansible is used industry-wide, and you don't need to learn all the tools that are competing. You learn one, and then you try to justify that because you know this tool, learning the relevant tool or the comparable tool is much easier for you. So if any job description requires that sort of knowledge, you can justify yourself. So this is the sort of roadmap we will go with. So a bit of theory or a lot of text on the screen, but it's pretty much, you can say, the text format of the previous slide that we discussed. We go slightly deep into what sort of services we will cover. So today is the session 0 or session 1, whatever you call that. It's the general intro to Bootcamp and discuss. So we don't count this in the overall learning journey. It's mainly to know each other, to tell you what we are planning to do, how we are planning to do, so that basic stuff can be avoided next week and we can move on to the actual learning very quickly and don't waste time on the basic stuff. We will be learning about the overview of DevOps and cloud computing. We will learn AWS basic services like IAM, EC2, S3. We will be learning just sufficient to get you started, Git and Linux, so that you can start working on your projects or you can start working in your job. You don't need to spend hours and days on this skill set. We will cover containerization, Docker. We will do this before getting into any CI/CD, because a lot of tools that are required for CI/CD like Jenkins, Artifactory, and other tools, we will be using containerization. We will be using Docker to basically create that environment. So then we will discuss in the session 5, we will discuss CI/CD concepts. And again, differentiating skills like DevSecOps. Then we get into advanced AWS services, VPC, CIDR ranges, subnets, all sort of security aspects, private subnets and public subnets, all sort of integration between different VPCs, etc. So I have done some videos on channel that what I have seen most of the time in the industry, we are basically working on providing access to different services. Sometimes we are providing access to different people. Sometimes we are providing access to an EC2 instance to do some sort of work. So IAM and networking are core services. Basically, they are the main services where day-to-day job gets involved. And then EC2, RDS, database, S3, these are some of the supporting services. And then we discussed slightly a few more services like RDS, EBS, EFS. That makes it just sufficient cloud services that you can work with. You can create solutions, because solutions will mostly have compute, they will have networking, and they will have some sort of database. So these services will make sure that you are ready to get started. But then there are like 200 plus services on AWS. So we will not cover services like Kinesis, a lot of other machine learning services. Those are the services which are advanced and are used based on some specific use cases. Most of the applications will have some sort of compute, will have some sort of networking, and will have a database. So we will ensure that all those things are covered in this. Then, while up to session 7, we will be creating a lot of manual AWS resources. Then we get into Terraform masterclass, and we also discuss Packer. Again, differentiating skills. A lot of people don't cover this skill. So we will have 4 to 5 hours, a long marathon Terraform session, and we will ensure that you are able to create a lot of resources in cloud using the automation. Then we cover, we already have covered in the session 4 on the Docker and containerization. So we will then move on to Kubernetes masterclass, where we will learn concepts like GitOps and all the entire Kubernetes architecture basically, and how we deploy applications on Kubernetes using GitOps approach. Then we get into some sort of monitoring, very important for people who are managing infrastructure to understand the different monitoring. Monitoring has different aspects. You are monitoring things like CPU, RAM, and a lot of other metrics that are coming from your instances. And also you are monitoring a lot of logs. Your applications are generating logs. So we will get into that. A lot of people skip the logs part, but it's very extensively used in the industry. Basic concepts like alarms and billing through CloudWatch. And then what we plan to do is at session number 11 is what we have kept as an optional. If we don't, we plan to do Ansible there. But if you are struggling with these topics that we have discussed up to session 10, then we may do some sessions, revisit some of these tools, do some extra things in the AWS maybe. So it's entirely up to us. We don't want to, overburden you with the entire roadmap or everything that's possible. That's our plan. And then we get into complex project, which is the main thing that we want to offer you, which is once you have learned all these concepts, how these tools are used, how these tools are integrated with each other, then we get into start explaining you how these tools will be used in a complex project scenario, something real world, something that's used in the industry, something that we have seen being implemented already. And that's where we will provide you the specifications of a project. You go and implement that project. And with the help of ours or with the help of the community that we have built, you all are in the WhatsApp group, help each other. We try to implement that. And then we do a discussion how this project has to be implemented and any sort of final discussions around session 13. That's when we close the bootcamp. Now, apart from these sessions, apart from these 12 sessions that are coming in the next 12 weeks, we also plan to do some bonus sessions. We want to give as much as possible while we have trusted us. We will bring a couple of industry experts that are not me, not Saurabh. So you can ask them anything. You can validate the roadmap. Is it correct or should they learn anything else? You can ask them any questions based on, and we hope that they will be able to help you in, because sometimes what I have seen from other people who are on YouTube, that people always have a bias that this is the tool, this is the way they should approach. We don't want to limit to just two of us. We want to bring a few more experts so you can ask them any question relevant to your job, relevant to your industry. We plan to conduct a lot of mock interviews, but we will do it for limited number of people. So make sure you are working hard. If you are still struggling at a very basic level, then there is no point doing mock interviews for you. You need to learn and then reach to a certain level before you take up interviews. So if you are doing very well, you have accomplished your projects, then you should try mock interviews and take feedback that what you have learned from the bootcamp. And then we'll share it with everyone so they can also get benefited. If somebody has an interview lined up in the next 3 months during this bootcamp process, they want to discuss anything, we can do one session where we'll look at some job descriptions, how you should apply, how you should approach the interview if you have got a call. So that sort of session, because we have been hiring a lot of people in our job, and we have also applied for a lot of jobs in past. So we can bring some experience from that also. And finally, we also plan to do a few resume CV reviews and also some LinkedIn reviews so that you have the right keywords. You may not have them right now, but after completing the bootcamp, what keywords you should add in your resume, what projects you should add in your resume, what should be on your LinkedIn, so that you have slightly better chances of getting a call for your interview and are contacted by recruiters. So that is the massive plan we have for the next 3 months. I hope people are, they can relate to it, that this will take you take them through a sort of journey where they will learn DevOps, Cloud, AWS, Terraform, Kubernetes, monitoring aspects, all sort of thing, and then eventually do a project. And these extra bonus sessions are going to help. Okay, as I mentioned, we usually don't do anything very prepared sort of thing. We are very flexible. We can customize our content. We can customize a lot of things for you. So we wanted to do a bit of poll to understand where you, like 84 of you are in the chat, in the Zoom call. So where do you stand? So we can keep the content as per that. If you are basically based on your experience. So let's see if I can get a poll done with you guys. You should see a poll in your Zoom window. So just help us answer this. So basically, we want to assess where you stand, and we can tailor our content accordingly in the subsequent sessions. We don't want to be a one-way street where we just come and speak something random and then go away. And it will be obvious in front of you guys how we should tailor this content. 70% have answered. Still few people need to answer. That will help us refine this. There is a poll. Look for the poll window. I don't know if it shows up on the Zoom, I think automatically on your screen.
Yes, sir. We were able to see that.
Perfect. Roughly 90% people have answered. Okay, let me take a screenshot of this so we can. Last few seconds before people can. Okay.
I think we've got the data, Sanjeev. Yeah.
You got the data? So I'm just reading it. So we got 76 answers. That's 90% participated roughly. 21 are student or fresher. So welcome guys to the industry. And experience in other domains, but not in DevOps. Yeah, I expected this, people who are not in DevOps and cloud, but because this is hot and it's relevant, even if you are in testing, you are in infra, you are doing any other job, still relevant for you. You can switch or you can improve in your day job also. Some knowledge in DevOps, but not done any project, which is some knowledge, very dangerous. You haven't done any project. So you have very superficial knowledge. You have very high level knowledge. So yeah, make use of the time. Let's do some projects in this process and also brush up on the concepts. 1%, just 1% is experienced in DevOps and revising the fundamentals. So yeah, we hope that that this bootcamp is also relevant to you. Yeah, we'll try to let's make best use of this. So yeah, this is good. So our content is what we have planned as such is relevant to all these scenarios. I'm stop sharing this. Okay. So just allow me another 5-10 minutes to talk about next couple of slides so that it's clear, and then you will open it for everyone to ask any questions, and then I will hand over to Saurabh later on. So we want to make it interactive. That's how we have learned in the industry that any meeting, any sessions we are doing, it shouldn't be one way. It should be, interactive. People should be learning and engaging. So we have kept some sort of reward, some sort of bonus for people who are learning and helping us in this process. So we have a WhatsApp group. I'll explain you if you haven't joined that and you are directly coming from TopMate. So we have created a dedicated WhatsApp group for this bootcamp. So, and what we have seen in the July and August batch, a lot of questions are there, a lot of problems people face. So people who are most active in this process and helping each other, we will try to reward them. If you are building all the projects and you are sharing your GitHub repositories with people who are probably struggling, we will try to reward the top 3 members there as well. And just so that it makes sense for everyone, we are working with GitOps Foundation, which is a Kubernetes sister concern. So you can, we will try to get, we already have some vouchers, but I'm not sure how many of you will join and would be interested. So we will try to get everyone in this batch a GitOps certification voucher. That should give you a way to get authentic badge from GitOps Foundation, and you should be able to add it to your resume, to your LinkedIn, etc. So these are some of the ways that that we want to reward people who are actually trying to learn, trying to build their career. Whatever resources we have, we will try to help you in that approach. If we get some AWS certification vouchers through our connections, we will try to distribute them. Obviously, they are slightly expensive and limited in number, but we'll try our best. So basic idea is stay active in the group. It helps you. You may be working on some use cases, but another person struggling on some other tools or at some other place may need some help. Try to help each other. And I'll tell you like how to request for that help also. So stay active, build all the projects, and there are rewards are basically your enrollment could be free. You could be rewarded with financial things that you can purchase your own AWS vouchers, that sort of thing. The rewards are that your learning could be free of cost just because you are helping each other. Okay. I think this is, before we go to questions, last slide for me. How to get the maximum benefit from this bootcamp. So if you are a fresher student, make sure you watch the videos again. Sometimes live sessions can be overwhelming. You are not able to digest a lot of information. So watching it again, there is no disadvantage. There is no time waste in that. You can watch part of it. You can watch it entirely again, depending upon where you think you need to focus on. As I mentioned, there will be a week's time between different sessions. So do your self-study, ask more questions in the next session. So how we will design, there is some slide we'll discuss later on. So how we want to design this bootcamp is, so there will be a session on Sunday. The subsequent session, you always have the WhatsApp group where you are building projects, you are working on hands-on projects. The subsequent session, we will have at least an hour, first hour, where we will talk about concepts that you learned in the previous session, but still not clear, or you want to discuss, or you want to bring any other thoughts or anything else about the previous session. So it's not that we done some session and that's it. So subsequent session, first hour, is to focus on the last session. So make sure you are writing your questions. So throughout the week, you may be studying more YouTube videos. You may be working on those projects that we have given you. You may be watching the video again. You may have some questions from your job, which is relevant to the previous topic. So in that 1 hour, we will discuss that before we move on to the next topic. So make use of that 1 hour. Every session will have projects to be worked on. Do those projects with your hands. Even if they feel simple, try to work on them. Doing anything with hands-on, doing anything with your own experience will take you to, better places. That's you can speak about that very easily. You don't need anybody to tell you how it was done or very high level overview. No, you have worked on it, so you can speak about it. If you think those are simple projects, you can do extra projects. You can ask us to create projects for you, or you can find projects online as well. So we have a list of projects that we can share with you, but obviously that's if you have already done with the simpler projects. So make use of those extra specifications that we can share. And also ask any specific question in the WhatsApp and Zoom. I have seen in the July and August batch, people will say, I am not able to start. I don't know what to do. So that is the scenario where nobody can help. Start something, explain what error you are getting, what problem you are facing. That will be easier for someone to spend time with you, help you. But if you just say that I have no idea what's happening with me, that means that your concepts or things that you have learned so far are not sufficient and you are actually struggling massively. So don't say that I'm not able to start, I know nothing, I have no idea what to do. Follow the videos, follow the concepts that we have explained, and try to work on something, try to build something. You may fail. That is the time you ask those specific questions. That's what we mean by specific questions, whether it's Zoom call or WhatsApp call or in the WhatsApp group discussions. Try to be slightly specific. And that's, you will probably get the maximum benefit out of this bootcamp. All right. Any questions that you have, how this bootcamp will work? Is it meeting your expectations? Is it you looking forward to it, excited about it? What's your thought? Any questions you may have, just unmute yourself, just one person at a time, and you can ask anything. Then we will move on to, I will have Saurabh taking over after that.
Hi, Sanjeev.
Hi, Mohammed. Can you come online on camera if possible?
Yeah, I don't think we can hear you, Mohammed.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, better.
Okay. So, first of all, let's take the opportunity for me to be here because I'm watching your YouTube channel for a while. So the information that you are sharing related to the DevOps and cloud, it is very useful for us to be here. And thank you for us to giving this opportunity. And the first, my state of being standing here is like I was a little bit experienced in not having an experience in AWS, but I'm preparing certification for the solution architect kind of things. So by learning that, I think it will be easy for me to continue here and to gain some knowledge over here. The question is, so what kind of projects, like the projects in the sense, it is an industrial level project, or it is what kind of the level of projects will be that you are giving over here?
Okay. So yeah, these projects will be from our industrial experience, but we will simplify those projects for you. And we will have multiple level of projects. So for example, we looked in the chat, there are students and freshers. We will create a basic project that they should work on, everybody should work on. And we will also have slightly complex projects. So at the same time, so for example, some simple project where we will say you follow this in a public subnet for a fresher or junior who is just trying to start their journey. But for somebody who is experienced, we will ask them to do this similar project, but in a private subnet. That's just a simple example, but that's how we will make a simple project and an extended project for you. That's at every tool level. Then at the end, we have a slightly complex, medium complexity project, which will cover all the tools. So the project will have Terraform, will have AWS knowledge, Docker, all sort of concepts will be applied in that complex project, and that will be industry level project as well.
Thank you. And just one more question. So basically, now I'm on the production-based kind of like subject now I'm working in. So whether my position is like closely related to the DevOps or it is like while far away.
I actually didn't get the question. Is the project that we are going to cover related to DevOps and cloud?
No, Sanjeev. Like currently, I'm working in an organization with a project of support, like the production support. So it is rather closely related to our program, which is like useful for me that I'm asking.
So I am not sure what sort of tools, technologies you use. From production support point of view, yes, getting a good understanding of the cloud services, monitoring is going to be very useful for you. I'm not sure in your company, from a production support or support project, do you also do CI/CD? Do you also manage these tools or not? So yeah, it is slightly, it will be focused on, I can say, building infrastructure, deploying applications, those concepts, and then there are production support kind of scenarios also through monitoring. So we try to cover different aspects, but it's slightly more focused on DevOps engineers that are building infrastructure, that are building applications and deploying applications. But at the same time, yeah, at the same time, some concepts, like it all depends what you mean by production support and what sort of activities you need to do in your day-to-day job. But understanding of Kubernetes, understanding of AWS, all this is part of production support.
Okay, Sanjay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Sanjeev, hi. Saurabh, hi.
Hi.
So I come from more of finance risk and a business development side of it. And in the context of, so I understand the basics of a lot of things, but more in the context of being abreast of a lot of other things and staying ahead of the game with respect to this entire syllabus. What would you suggest that I learn over the next 1 week before I come for the next session? Would you want me to install something? Would you want me to learn some basics, etc., so that I don't ask some very fundamental questions?
Yeah, we will get into that, what we want you to do in the next week. Next few slides, we'll talk about that. But you mentioned something, you are in risk or some other, what was that?
The finance and business development side of it.
Okay. So do you plan to do hands-on and all the projects? No. Okay.
My responsibility or the role is at this stage of my career is more in supervisory and in other ranks. I needed to understand the nuances of it so that I'm able to articulate it the right way and get things done. So while I'm keen on learning it, it would not be a very critical parameter for me.
Okay. But just make sure, like you are experienced, so you make sure you ask us the right questions, anything that you think, because we will be slightly focused on people who are building applications, following DevOps, but we'll also cover, for example, Agile and DevOps and all other concepts as well. So, and I'm happy to add, if you guys need anything around FinOps, we can add something, some content around FinOps as well. Because we see the recession coming and a lot of companies have migrated to cloud. They want to cut cost. So we can do some sort of discussion on FinOps as well one day.
Please have that in the agenda. I think that's coming up in a big way in multiple conversations.
Yes.
Please.
True.
Thank you.
Varun wants to ask a question.
Yeah, hi, Sanjeev. So I do have 14 plus years of experience as a system architect into the legacy ERP systems. So it's from a long time that I wanted to move into the DevOps at a cloud kind of thing, because everything is now moving on to the cloud era. So my main question is, like, for a candidate like me who does have a fair bit of experience onto a different domain, will this bootcamp enable me to tailor my CV or tailor my skill set to a certain level so that I will be job ready for another application, for a DevOps role or something? So will this prepare me, or if it does, what sort of projects or something that I should be focusing on from basic to what sort of complexity, which will help me to build my career into the DevOps and cloud?
Can I ask you, like, what are your responsibilities, day-to-day activities that you perform in your role right now?
I'm working on to an Oracle ERP, and being a system architect, we do take care of a lot of database servers, application servers, and the web server that are being deployed onto the different clouds like AWS, OCI, and Azure. So, but we work very closely with the cloud architects who actually, design. We give them the blueprint from application standpoint, and they go and implement that. So it's not like some of the terminologies are quite new to me, but I do not have those hands-on or wider understanding around how those pillars are being made and on which those applications runs.
Right. So yeah, I believe you would want to target for that kind of role as a cloud architect in future.
Yes.
Yeah. In that case, yes, it will, as I mentioned, will be slightly beginner friendly. It will be a lot of concepts that we discuss about automation, Jenkins and Artifactory may not be so much relevant for you to do hands-on with those tools. I wouldn't suggest you doing a lot of hands-on, but understand the nuances, understand how a DevOps engineer would be using those tools to build different solutions. But at the same time, focus more on the AWS services. We cover the core services, which are required pretty much in all the projects, but there are additional services. Some of the services we will bring, but I have not mentioned. A lot of networking services you should learn, not a lot of IAM services, the load balancers, and how you integrate different cloud systems is what probably you should focus on as an architect.
Okay, and should we focus, or is it part of the agenda to focus on some sort of programming skills like Python or advanced shell scripting to automate?
Shell script, yes. Shell script, yes, but not so much on the Python programming as such. Okay. I have not mentioned that in the agenda because there is no guarantee that the language that we work on is gonna be relevant in the job description that you are going to apply for. Okay. So different organization, like we have seen companies building their Java applications or writing their microservices in Java, Node.js, Python, different languages, and different tools have their own languages also. Like Ansible has different way of writing, Terraform, Docker, Kubernetes. These tools itself have a lot of languages and a lot of scripting skill set to be built in your portfolio. So what I usually see that, yes, you need to have your good programming background. You need to be able to think in a way that how automation works, how you can apply your programming knowledge and skill to solve a specific DevOps and cloud problem. But it's not necessary that you spend hours and weeks and learning Python, maybe. So very specific use cases. Some of the projects that we will talk about will require you to go and maybe try something in Python, but we'll not cover, like, that's not our learning objective. That's the development side of things. We will not be covering that in detail.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Any more questions, anyone?
Prasad has some question. Hi, Prasad. Just unmute. Yeah.
Hear me well?
I can't hear you.
No?
I can't hear you, Prasad. So we take the question from Pankaj then.
Hello.
Yeah, Pankaj.
Yes, sir. Can we include in this bootcamp Lambda any serverless services?
We do plan to have a bit of Lambda. That's where I mentioned we will probably use Python. We will also have some hands-on on ALB, load balancers and health checks and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll add Lambda.
Yes,
later.
because of I did one small practical on Lambda on triggering, but it's failed to attempt. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, let's do it. Let's have one session on or some effort on Lambda as well.
All right. Norman, you have got a question? No, we can't hear you, Norman, if you're speaking.
All right, Prasad, is your audio sorted?
Hope it should just started now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Perfect. Okay. So hi Sanjeev and hi Saurabh, hi team. So basically, I have close to 14 years of experience in this automation area, and I'm kind of well versed with programming languages like C#, Java, and also Python. And I'm kind of already working into the DevOps, but it's not a full-fledged DevOps, I can say. But I really want to transition now from the QA side of things to the DevOps side of things. So I really want to understand what the key focus area that I should actually focus on, from this course as well as from the career perspective. And I really want to know the tools specifically that I should.
Yeah. So pretty much what I mentioned to the previous candidate, he wanted to focus more on the architectural side. You want to focus more on the application testing side. So anything that he doesn't have to do is basically, you can say, your focus area. So for example, how the application is being built, how it's deployed, how testing fits into this, how you can integrate your test framework that you have created that can fit into this. So
Okay.
yeah, those are the things I think you should mainly focus on.
Okay. And how about learning the concepts or the depths of Kubernetes? Will that really help me to get started with my DevOps journey?
Yes, definitely. A lot of companies are moving to Kubernetes, and somehow companies that are not on Kubernetes also this question or these sort of things show up in the interviews. So that also trend we have seen may not be relevant for your level, but for junior roles, Kubernetes does show up in the interviews a lot. So yeah, it's a very integral skill to have for any sort of communication in future. For example, any monolith application that your company is using Java, Python, any such platform, and they are moving to microservices, you will be able to participate in those discussions. How testing scenario changes when you move to microservices. So we will go to it to an extent, but may not go in all the possible scenarios. But because that will make it very complicated for people to understand who have limited experience. But again, ask those right questions, utilize the first hour of every session, bring this kind of discussions, or maybe we can have specific one-to-one discussions as well if needed on any career discussion.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Prasad. I know you guys have a lot of questions about specific yourself. How about the bootcamp content? You guys are excited, looking forward to it, because answering those specific questions about the career and all, sometimes it's not difficult, like it's not possible in these sessions. You need to know a lot before you give a answer. What's your experience? What role you want to target? What's your core skill set? What companies you have been working with? What companies you want to target? A lot of questions I need to ask first, understand your scenario, and then suggest career options. Sometimes I may not even have answered. A lot of people on YouTube, they will ask questions like, I have a career break of 10 years, 5 years, 3 years. How do they manage? So sometimes it's very difficult to answer these questions unless you go really detail into this specific situation of the person and what options they have. But yeah, I will try best. But yeah, take help from your any mentor you have, your friends, your seniors as well, because what we say is based on slightly limited knowledge that we gather from these discussions, and sometimes it may be misleading also that we have suggested something based on a little information, and it can be misleading. So I just want to say that we are more into technical aspects of DevOps and cloud, how this fits, but how you apply that in your career and what sort of roles, responsibilities you are looking for. Let's make use of those extra sessions that we have, those extra bonus sessions that we plan to do. Do your homework, prepare your questions, bring a job description that you want to discuss, and we can then talk about that, because that will allow us to ask a lot of questions, get specific about you, and then answer based on our experience. Okay, should we move on to the
Yep, Sanjeev.
So do you want to take over,
Yes,
Saurabh?
I'll take the next slides. So let me.
If there is still some question not answered, just hold on to it. After the discussion, we have like some slides from Saurabh. We can see your desktop. Yeah, we can see the screen, Saurabh. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sanjeev. So thanks everyone for making up to the first part of the presentation. So now there are a couple of questions in the messages which the next set of slides will answer. So some of the messages were what are the expectations, what do we need to install, and so we'll be covering up next now. So what are the expectations from the bootcamp, and what does bootcamp expect from everybody? So we'll be covering up lots of different tools, lots of different fundamentals across all the tech stack. So as everybody is on a separate part of their learning, so there are people who are freshers, there are people who are experienced. We'll try to cover up in as simplistic language as we can, but we'll go into the in-depth as well. So the bootcamp will cover all the fundamentals of the DevOps. We'll be focusing on AWS, as Sanjeev mentioned, and all the different tool stack that have been mentioned. We are a bit flexible, so some people would like to cover Ansible, some people would like to cover Lambda. We'll try to see as much as we can cover in terms of what is not in the course. So, and then we go with the flow. We'll just be flexible with what everybody wants. Now, it's an expectation from you to do homework after the session. So there's no assignments provided in this session. It's just an introductory session. But every tool stack, every session that we do, we will be providing you assignments. Now, these assignments are in 3 parts. So the assignments will be as a part of your base goals. It will be stretch goals and also the projects. So when we are learning Git, when we are learning Linux, Jenkins, Artifactory, we've got Kubernetes, Docker, all these different tech stack when we are going through. So after each presentation, whatever has been demonstrated into the presentation, that will be just the base goals. Because we just don't want you to just have a look at these slides and then think that it is all done and you've seen it all. You need to go and practice it, because unless and until you practice it, you will not be getting a crux of it. Sometimes it may seem like you are just executing one single step as you're seeing it in the slides now. But when you actually go and try to install it, when you actually go and try to run those commands, you might face an issue. So it's very, very important to be to do these sessions practically on your computer and at your end. So that's why we say the base goals are a must, because if you are not really practicing it, you will get stuck up sometime later. The stretch goals are extended goals. So some of the stretch goals we might not be discussing in it. So for example, if we are learning Linux, the stretch goals might be that you might have to actually go and read more on YouTube, read more on the internet, look some other material in order to execute the stretch goals. But I would highly recommend that if you're able to complete the stretch goals, you will have a fair understanding of all the tech stack that we are trying to cover up. Because base goals it will just get you there, but stretch goals will actually provide you a deeper learning. And the projects that we are providing at the end of each technology, that should be tried at least. So I'm not expecting that everybody will be able to do all these projects. So they might be a little bit more intermediate. Some of them might have a little advanced role that needs to be put in. But if you're able to put those projects in, that will prepare you for a real world scenario when we are giving you the last project at the end of this bootcamp. So you would be able to then complete it if you are completing all the projects that we are giving it to you at the end of each sessions. So what this bootcamp will offer you. So if somebody is a fresher, they will be able to earn up to, I would say, around 6 to 8 months of experience by the end of the bootcamp. So provided you actually start finishing up your stretch goals and the projects. So just with the number of years of experience that you get across the industry, you will be able to cover up a lot in the bootcamp if you're just executing all what is being asked. Now, in terms of the session timings, we will try to keep it at Sunday 4 p.m. IST because consistent timing, it makes it easy for everybody to schedule their lives around it. I know everybody is busy, but Sunday around, it's towards the end of the weekend, and probably it's easier for everybody to make it up. So the session will run between 2 to 3 hours. Now, why do we say 2 to 3 hours? Because initial 30-minute to 1 hour discussion will be on the previous class and previous topics. So for example, if we have covered Git and Linux in the previous Sunday class, and the next Sunday would be, let's say, Docker. So we would be spending up the first 30 minutes to an hour on whatever is the problems that anybody is facing. If there are any common set of attributes, something that we missed covering up in the previous session but was important, then we would discuss up to an hour in the session. And the next 2 hours will cover up the current class content. So that's the basic idea of how we'll be running up the bootcamp. So now on the prerequisites. So what do we expect from you from the next session onwards? The first thing that you obviously need is a dedicated computer with an admin rights so that you can actually install all of it, all the different softwares that we are asking you to work on. You would very, very obviously need an AWS account. So you should be having an access to a credit card if you do not have it. The AWS account, you have to be a bit careful with the use of AWS account because sometimes the billing might be just, it might just overshoot if you're not reasonable enough. Let's say if you have opened up an instance in there, you're using a service which you did not intend to use, the billing might start shooting up. So you have to be a bit careful with whatever other services that you're running in. Let's say if you have an EC2 instance running in, just try to shut it down as soon as you are done with the task. Otherwise, it will start incurring all the different billing. So what we estimate is that with a reasonable use, you might be able to get around with a $10 bill by the end of the whole bootcamp. But if you're not careful enough, if you are leaving those sessions idle, if you're using the resources, you have to keep an eye on all the billings. So in AWS, you do have the billing cycle, and you can actually start setting up alarms. So it will start prompting you if you're exceeding up the budget. I would recommend that you set up a billing alarm. Now, how do you set up a billing alarm? I can send you probably a link to that just even before we actually start asking you to actually create the account. So just I'll send you a document with how do you set up a billing alarm. Now, regarding some of the basic etiquettes, try to keep your video on if you want to ask questions, but saying that if you are in an unprofessional environment, probably it's okay to actually just not keep the video on, just ask your questions. Try to be very relevant with the group. It's a large group, so if you start asking questions along with your just whatever is the very specific experience that you might have and it's not relevant with the group, probably it's better to ask, give a shout out later on to myself and Sanjeev in the WhatsApp and ask it, because if it is not relevant with the group, most of the people might not be actually interested with it. So try to ask questions on whatever the content is presented, rather than whatever is happening in your personal life and in your personal journey in your professional career. So that would be that would make the best use of everyone in the time. So it's a large group. Everyone is at a different stage of learning. Some people, they already know quite some of the content, but just try to be patient, because that's how you actually start working with everybody. And we don't want to leave anybody behind. So we want everybody to actually understand it and have a lot of knowledge after the bootcamp than they were before. So that's the whole idea of the bootcamp. Now, in order to set up your laptop, we'd require a few installations. If you can do it beforehand, that would be very, very good. But also, we'll be covering up all these different installations as and when we go in the different sessions as well. If you're aware of Git, probably you might actually install your Git client. If you don't do it, that's all right as well, because we'll be covering up in the sessions. You can create a GitHub account. So it's a free account on github.com. Just you can create an account with just your email ID. AWS CLI, if you are comfortable, you know what an AWS CLI is. These are all the packages. You can just Google it and download it. Of course, you will need a Linux workstation. So for those people who are working on a Windows laptop, you can use your WSL installation to open up your Linux or Ubuntu. Linux is one of the primary things that you have to learn. So for people who are not conversant with the Linux platforms, they will have to learn Linux. There's no skipping around it. So you would need to learn Linux commands. You would need to learn how Linux works, have an understanding of what is a kernel. And we will be discussing about Linux in the Linux session, but you can't skip it. So you have to work with it. Terraform, you can install Terraform beforehand. Now so Terraform is important for infrastructure as code. We'll be discussing it more later in the Terraform sessions. And obviously Docker. Without Docker, you just can't work on any of the microservices or any of the DevOps tools. So these are the prerequisites that we would need. Now, collaboration. I think this is one of the most beautiful things that I like about Bootcamp is the way that we collaborate. So we'll be creating a closed and dedicated WhatsApp group. Now, be mindful of whatever you are posting up in the group. As Sanjeev said before, don't put in questions like, I have no idea where to start. At least start something, whatever is the error that is coming up, and then people will be able to help resolving each other. So try to keep it very professional. We'll be having study discussions on it. So whatever topic we are covering up, we'll ourselves be sending you lots of material on it, where you can actually go and have a look at in more detail. So let's say if we are discussing Docker, so we'll also be putting up lots of different links on Docker as to whatever was not covered in the session, so that people can just actually open up those links and have more understanding on it. So we will focus on all the different practical learnings. We highly encourage that you do it practically. It might look like that you know all this just by watching the video, but trust me, it doesn't. So unless and until you start doing it practically, you might just get stuck up in even simple things and you would not know how to resolve them. But on video, it just looks very easy. So these discussions must be very, very focused and professional. Don't just focus on good morning and good evening stuff. Try to write down your problems directly. Anybody who is not using these WhatsApp groups in a professional manner, they will be kicked out. So no amount of unprofessional behavior will be circulated, or it will be tolerated. As I said, there will be study materials which will be circulated. The next set of meetings that we'll be having, we'll probably try to keep the timing at Sunday 4 p.m. IST. But if there are any change in the meeting timings, or if there are any change in the notifications that we want to put it in, we'll be notifying it in the group. Now, this group at the moment is the Bootcamp #1. So we'll be opening up this group for everybody. So not just the admins, anybody can start sending in the messages. But as I said, just try to be professional in it. So if you don't have access to the link, so I believe that there are 81 people that have joined in. There were more than 100 participants. So I'm not really sure if others, why they could not join in. Either they missed out on the email from TopMate and they could not get the group link. But if you don't have the link, just check your emails from the TopMate. Now, this one thing to be very clear, you're not supposed to circulate this WhatsApp and invite anybody else, because because only the people who have enrolled in the course they do have access to these groups. So just try to be very, very professional in the way that the groups are to be used. All right. Now, the key benefits. So the power of the community, that's what I've been talking about. So we do have a closed set of WhatsApp group. Everybody would be working towards the same project. Everybody would be working towards the same sort of the basic and the extended assignments. So the power of community becomes very, very important here, because we have people who will be helping each other out. We do have rewards for the people who are active in the community. Don't just be that you visit up these groups on a Sunday and then you just open up in another Sunday. So try to be active in the community. Try to learn, because this is what you are here for. And this is going to be the best learning that you might be looking for if you're trying to get into DevOps and cloud. So make best use of this time. Regarding industry experts, so as Sanjeev said, so we will be bringing up industry experts apart from myself and Sanjeev. You'll be able to ask them questions, how the industry is behaving, what are the next set of tools, or you have any set of questions on any fundamentals, or even whatever set of questions that you have on either it be on technology, or it be on a industry behavior, or whether it be the next set of tools or tech stack. So you can ask any questions on that. The bootcamp completion, yes, we'll be providing the certificates. We would be providing extra certificates to people who have covered up all the different projects that we are giving them. So that those will be gold certificates that will be provided, especially to the people who have covered all their base assignments, all their advanced assignments, and also all the projects that we have. So those will be the gold certificates that will be provided. But the participation certificates will be given to everybody. Now, these certificates, they can be used as a set of completion certificate. So probably not as an experience certificate, but that you have completed the bootcamp for DevOps and cloud, and you have covered all these different topics. Mock interviews. So Sanjeev and myself, we have been conducting a lot of mock interviews. So we'll be preferring the candidates from the bootcamp, and then in the next round when we have the mock interviews. So these are very essential in preparing up for your real interviews. So these are real scenario-based questions that Sanjeev and myself, we do take a lot of interviews in our organization. And these are real practice questions and real scenarios and real behavioral based questions that we ask in there. So I think these are very, very good value add. and the preference will be given to people who are a part in the bootcamp. The recordings will be available for this bootcamp, so we'll be sending you the recordings after we have completed the sessions. So after every session, the recordings will be available, and yeah, try to keep it to yourself and not just circulate it wildly in the web, because if that is done, then probably we might have to restrict the recordings based on individual email IDs, which we don't want to do now. But if come that may, then we'll have to restrict it just based on their email IDs. Workshops, we'll be doing at the end of the bootcamp, we'll be conducting a workshop. So that will include a real-time industry-based project. And the WhatsApp group will be used for the communication. Now, regarding the WhatsApp, so if you are not really keen on WhatsApp, you are more than welcome to create your own separate groups, whether in Slack or in Telegram, or whichever is the way that you want to choose within your separate community out of the bootcamp. So you can use your own community externally. So this is a sample certificate that we have for each participants. So this is the type of certificate that will be given. The text might change. It's just a sample that we just took it off internet, just did a little bit of a change in it, but this is not the final certificate that you will be getting. It will be very, very relevant. It might mention some of the tech stack. It might mention some of the projects that we'll cover, or whatever sort of experience. So this may change, but a certificate will be provided to everybody. Putting that in LinkedIn will, of course, increase some of your profile. Now, before going on further into the slides, so happy to take any questions. All right, Norman, go for it.
Hi, Sanjeev and Saurabh. Thank you. I was just asking, how many hours would you recommend between 2 Sundays when we are given a task, and how many hours do you think would it take to complete that task?
Yes. So the tasks are divided between the basic assignments, the advanced one, and the projects. So I think the basic task could be done in as little as 2 hours between the Sundays. So if you just spend 2 hours, you'll be able to cover up the basics. The advanced assignments might take an extra hour every day. But if you are doing the full project, then it might be around 2 to 3 hours every day of the week. So that's what we are focusing. Yep.
So 2 to 3 hours every day.
But that is when you choose to do all the projects. They're not mandatory. But if you're doing the projects, you will start getting a real life glimpse on how the DevOps is to be set up for a specific tech stack. So for example, if you're just doing the basics, so it will be very similar to what has been demonstrated. So I'll be doing some demos, some live demos, some screenshots. I'll be presenting them as we go. So I would encourage that everybody should try out at least the demo that I have shown. So that would be the very, very basic thing. The advanced will cover up probably few things that we have not covered up in here. You might have to start doing some more learning, to which I will provide the reference material in the WhatsApp group. So you might have to do some more learning and then cover all the advanced. But if you want to do the project, there will have to be some more time to be spent on it. So it all depends on what you want to do.
Right. But if you're getting stuck in somewhere, like you said, like the first hour or first 30 minutes to 1 hour, you'll be dedicating it to the previous task or previous class. So if you're having problems in that project, if you're not able to do some part of the task, so would you or Sanjeev would be helping us out with completing the task, or maybe
So
through WhatsApp?
Yep. So we will not be doing error handling in the program. So because if we start discussing on individual errors, we'll never be able to finish the program. So try to resolve all the errors within the WhatsApp group itself. So myself and Sanjeev will be active in it. But I'm pretty sure that many participants who are trying to do will be in the similar journey and help each other out. So this is
Right.
what we did in the July and August batch as well. So when we ran the intermediate and the advanced projects, so people would just paste their errors and then others would just try to help and resolve it.
Okay. And sort of just the last one. How about differentiating between a cloud engineer and a DevOps engineer? For example, I mean, if the DevOps journey, in complete those 12 weeks, if, for example, someone is not able to, complete all those things and, get the complete picture of a DevOps engineer to become a DevOps engineer, can he just be a cloud engineer, or are both the roles same?
Yep. See, both cloud and DevOps, they complement each other. So when you say DevOps, you will have Git, you will have Jenkins, you will have Artifactory, or similar set of tool stacks. So we'll be discussing the tool stacks in the next set of slides. Cloud engineer mostly would work on a similar set of tool stack, but more focused towards the cloud. So they'll be more focused towards setting up Kubernetes within the cluster. And I don't want to actually go much deeper into the terms which many people would not understand about AWS. But yes, the cloud and DevOps, they do complement each other.
Perfect. Thanks, sir. Thank you.
All right. Next question from Mayuresh.
Hello, Saurabh. Hello, Sanjeev. I actually have two basic questions. The first question is, what monitoring tools, like apart from CloudWatch, would be covered in the bootcamp if they are going to be covered? And the second question is, if the shell scripting, like the basic shell scripting, would be included in the bootcamp?
Yep. So now the shell scripting, so we will be covering up only the basic Linux. So, but shell scripting by itself, we cannot cover it in a 2 hours time window. So I would expect that the people who are trying to actually start doing shell scripting, they would be learning on their own. We'll be providing the reference material to that. In fact, some of the advanced assignments that we ask for, and the project that we ask for, that will include a shell scripting knowledge.
Okay, but as you mentioned, you would be providing the reference material to study, right?
Yes, we'll be providing the reference material to study how to learn shell scripting. So any advanced, so we'll be providing lots of assignments, and you'll be so once we actually deeper into the sessions, you will see that. But we'll be providing the reference material as to where you can go start learning on their own. See, DevOps and cloud. And for that, any technology, you'll have to spend a lot of time in it, do hard work. Nobody can actually spoon feed everything to you. And for that matter, they will all be the reference materials. All the learnings are available on YouTube, internet, and they're all free learnings available. So what we're trying to do is bring in a structured program as much as we can, but there have to be learnings outside of this program if you want to complete all the different projects.
Right, I do understand. All right, thank you so much.
All right, thanks. I'm not sure on the order of the hand, but probably Kajal, go ahead.
Hi, Saurabh. So actually, I had a 3 years of experience. I had worked on automation tool. Now I want to switch in cloud projects. So with all projects I'm looking in my own company, the required skills which are there are like having a knowledge on Chef, Puppet, and on monitoring tools like Datadog and Nagios. So is that going to be possible? You will be covering these topics also,
Yep.
like just a glimpse of it.
Yes. So we'll be covering not only the glimpse, so we'll be covering one of these tools in detail. So let me reach to the end of this slide, and I'll show you as to what are the different tools that we have corresponding to each one of them. It's not important to learn all these different tools. So just one tool in detail is enough, and the rest, all the different tools that correspond to the same bucket.
It's like what all projects I'm looking for every job profile. It's like a mandatory, like Chef and Puppet. It's required mandatory knowledge you should be having in order to get into that project. So are we going to have some hands-on also on those?
There's an Ansible module that we are trying to do. That's in the session 11. So if everybody is happy with that, we'll be covering up Ansible. Now, Chef and Puppet, they are very similar to Ansible, but the more preference is towards the Ansible itself.
But there's a difference now, because as these are configuration tool based on push and pull mechanism as it's being categorized. So is there going to be a lot difference, or just a minimal difference will be there when we are going to work on it?
Well, all the different tools. So you got Ansible playbooks. You got in Chef that you got different recipes. So we'll not be able to cover all these tools in detail, but we'll try to cover at least one of them.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Or did I answer your question, Kajal? All right.
Yes,
So
sir.
we got,
Yeah. Fine.
All right. So we got next question from Mohammed.
Hi, Saurabh.
Okay. Yep. Tell me.
Yes. I know there is a no placement commitments over this boot camp. I know that, but after completing, so I'm holding of 3 years of experience. So I'm switching. I'm planning to switch the profile. So is there any referrals or referral program? Is there over after the completion of this boot camp? The successful rate of percentage.
So Mohammed, we are not doing any sort of job referrals based on this, because even though bootcamp it's a 3-month program, but the bootcamp will only bring you up to an intermediate level. So in order to actually start looking at those different interviews, you will have to do either you will have to finish up all the different projects that we have asked, or otherwise you might have more real hands-on projects that we'll be offering at the end of the bootcamp. So we currently do not have any referrals after the bootcamp itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So next question from Akash.
Hey, hello, Saurabh. So my question is on the same which you mentioned about the cloud and DevOps, but it's not on those lines, but it's on the CI/CD part. So when I'm seeing the job roles, there are different JDs for CI/CD roles as well. So as I have gone through like basic understanding of it, so what is your understanding or suggestion? Like, is it easy to go in the CI/CD part, considering the DevOps only? But if someone want to switch and start the journey, the CI/CD part will be easy, or you suggest, like I'm a 5+ years experience guy, so you suggest to go for a complete DevOps or a CI/CD part, because the job roles are different and CI/CD have the different openings as well. So that is my question to you.
So we'll be covering up the CI/CD. So there are multiple CI/CD tools available. So we'll be starting up with Jenkins. And we'll be including Artifactory for binary management. So we'll be covering up the different concepts of what a pipeline is, how do you create a pipeline, what sort of scripting that you need in there, what is meant by executing up these binaries, how do you actually start putting up in Artifactory. So these are all the deployments. Also, we'll be covering up Docker and Kubernetes deployments. So yes, we'll be covering up. So if you are asking up regarding the CI/CD as a DevOps engineer, if you're focusing on CI/CD, yes, we'll be covering that up.
Thank you, Saurabh.
All right. So next question is from Muthu.
Oh, hi, Saurabh. Hi, Sanjeev. So yeah, I am having around 10 years of experience in mainframe. Yeah. So I am just trying to switch my career to DevOps on cloud. So with respect to the bootcamp, you have shown certain set of tools, right? Like example, Terraform, AWS. So those tools, do we need to download from any specific sites, or from directly from Google we can able to just install in our local machine? Yeah.
So you can just Google it, and you'll get probably in the first 3 links you'll be able to get that. If you're not really able to get it, probably just put it in the WhatsApp group, and I think many people will be happy to help. Okay. So Muthu, so you said that you are from a mainframe background. So do you have any sort of Linux-based experience?
No, I don't have, because I'm currently in UK. I'm in a support project, so I'm just trying to switch myself into the DevOps. So I don't
Right.
have any background.
So I would really recommend that in between this week and the next, you should start using Linux and probably try to get a more hands-on onto it, because if you have been working on mainframe, probably it might be a bit difficult to work on the Unix prompt.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
All right, next question from Akash.
I already asked the question. I just
All
forgot
right,
to
so
lower
maybe,
it.
yeah. So if you ask the question, just lower the hand, because otherwise I start getting confused. All right,
Yeah.
Shalini.
Hi, Saurabh and Sanjay. So I'm basically a backup support engineer. So this is nothing related to DevOps. So I have about 4 years of experience. And in the past, I have knowledge about, basic networking, Juniper networks, or say Java, C++. And I hail from PC background in my bachelor's. And I have knowledge about AWS basics because I've done some free training over there. But I've been working on a backup support. So I'm not sure, would I be considered as any newly passed out bachelor, or if I have to brush up on my old skills like Java, C++, or anything, what would I be able to touch over this week? So I'll be ready for the next session.
Right. So, Shalini, what I understand is that you have been working as a backup support engineer, but probably you have not worked too much on the programming, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, in order to be a DevOps and cloud engineer, you don't really need too much of programming. So you would need programming if you are an applications engineer. So if you are doing a lot of scripting in, let's say, creating your CI/CD pipelines, and you are actually creating those scripts which do these compilations and all. So a lot of stuff in DevOps and cloud, that these are all configurations. So understanding the fundamentals. So if you are into AWS, and if you're just an AWS cloud engineer, you don't really get to do all this programming stuff. So you don't need a expert level skill in either Java or Python or C++. You don't need to learn that. So what you need to learn is all these different concepts. So for example, if somebody is new to AWS, what does an RDS mean? So what is SQS, SNS? What do these concepts mean? What is the concept of queuing? How do you actually start up the EC2 instances? What does it mean by user groups and roles? So lots of different stuff is just understanding the concepts and trying to bring it into application rather than programming. Programming is just a part of it. There are many DevOps engineers who never code even a word for the programming.
Oh,
but on the other hand, some of the DevOps engineer roles are also application focused, and then they have to do a lot of coding. So it depends on what you want to do.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next question I see from Rohit.
Hello, Saurabh. Hi, Sanjeev. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Hello. So I'm doing my master's from computer science. So basically, I'm a newbie. So my question is something related to the installations. So I'm using a Mac, and I have a VM installed with Linux too. So what do you recommend? Do you want to make me to install all this Docker Terraform on my Mac, or it's better to install directly to the Linux, and we can perform all the projects or the assignments from the Linux system itself?
Yep. You can install it directly on your Mac. No problems at all.
Oh, okay. So we can start working from the Mac itself directly.
Yes. So I myself use a Mac, so you can just install it.
Oh, okay. That should work. No problem. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Next question from Pankaj.
Hi, sir. So question is, can we get some idea about the sprint, like industry level, and what is the software level procedure, and what is our role in DevOps engineer in that sprint or industry development?
Sorry, I'm not really sure if I understood your question, but I'm just rephrasing it. Are you trying to understand what is the role of a DevOps engineer in an organization?
Yes, and actually, I want to get some idea about sprint level. What is sprint? How is program build? Where to store and how to come from CI/CD pipeline? Where that comes the picture in the DevOps engineer.
All right. Let's just hold up this question because I've got next set of slides and then I'll talk about this in detail.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll remember to actually explain it to you, Pankaj. But just hold this question. All right. Next question from Kajal.
Yeah, hi Saurav. Actually, I was asking like currently I'm doing my associate developer course of AWS. So it's like in that for the CI/CD, the topic isn't like covered in so much depth, like how this Kubernetes, Docker, Terraform, all this concept, just like a basics they have given on that. So, and if I go for some of the job profiles, they just mention like if you are a certified associate developer, then you can apply for like this job profile, whatever they've given. So, is that certification knowledge is enough to get into a DevOps project?
I think a lot of certification would cover quite much into what you need. I haven't done the developer certification myself. I'm not really sure. Sanjeev has got a lot of more AWS certifications on his bucket.
No,
So
In that it's like they mostly as I went through the course, so they mostly cover the integration tools like SQS, all SNS, all those messaging tools and Event Bridge. So basically, if we see somewhere outside in DevOps, the first thing which will be coming like Docker, containers, all this topics, Terraform, and all those things. So I got this doubt.
that is an AWS certification.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
The AWS.
they will not cover. They will tailor their certification as per the AWS services. They will not cover Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform at all.
Yeah. Correct.
Right. So
Yeah.
what I have seen from my own experience, certifications are good. Employers like to trust people that they are certified. But I have myself struggled after passing some certifications early in my career. I was placed on to some projects which I was not able to work on. We were making a lot of mistakes within my team. So certifications are good, especially the AWS ones are designed well, but some of them they don't cover everything because they are AWS specific things. So I actually didn't do developer or those certifications. I was focusing more on the AWS overall services, the associate architect, their professional service. So it covers all the 200 services that they have, a lot of services from AWS. So if your target is to learn AWS, then do the AWS services. If your target is to learn Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, then those are not relevant.
But basically, to be a DevOps engineer, this knowledge is mandatory.
Absolutely.
Docker, Kubernetes.
Absolutely. And they will not be covered in that exam. So that's why I'm saying, if you want to be DevOps engineer, then you learn the DevOps skills. If you want to be a AWS cloud engineer or architect, then you focus on their certifications.
And what about Sanjeev, cloud job profile? What all skills they will be requiring if we go for cloud computing? Are the services of AWS is enough, or again there this Docker, Kubernetes, all this knowledge is
All these
required
are
there
relevant.
also?
Yes, all these are relevant. Kubernetes is nothing but a service hosted on AWS, is again an offering from cloud itself.
Yeah.
So that also is a cloud native service. Even if some organization, there is a very thin line between DevOps and cloud engineer. So as Saurabh mentioned, even a cloud engineer uses tools like Jenkins. They will be using Terraform, same skill set required for a DevOps role. So there is not much of difference. You will see a DevOps engineer title and cloud skill set required, and a cloud engineer title and DevOps skill set required. So they are very overlapping in nature.
Yes, Sanjeev, can I add a point here?
Yeah.
Relevant to Kajal. Yeah, Prasad here. So yeah, DevOps, Docker and Kubernetes are like individual components, tools that we need to master. And obviously AWS is offering EKS and ECS, which are basically automatic services of the same underlying technologies. I think that services are coming in the architect exam. Yeah. So obviously the fundamentals, individual tools is what we need to capture first before entering into AWS DevOps. Am I right? Yeah. Right, Sanju?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely. First, we need to get those basic concepts like Docker, Kubernetes, and then we can get into EKS or that AWS specific services.
Right. All right. Thanks.
In fact, when you have knowledge about Kubernetes, then working on EKS makes it a breeze, because now you have understood all the different master and the worker nodes and all these details. And then you'll find that AWS makes working on Kubernetes far more easier. But you should be learning it the hard way first, trying to install all these different components so you understand it better. But
So what I believe is
in details.
Yeah. So what I believe is underlying technologies, if you are learning perfectly, I think the same Kubernetes we can do in GKE, in Google Cloud.
That's
there is some other service on Azure automating the same service, right? Yeah. Right. So we can be cloud agnostic actually.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. All right. Any more questions, Kajal?
No, thanks, Saurabh. Thanks, Sanjeev. Thanks,
Right,
Prasad.
So we've got one question from Santosh.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yep. Tell me, Santosh.
So I'm a fresh graduate. So it's a kind of new experience for me with along with these experienced people. So I'm really excited actually. But I'm actually looking for like entry level jobs actually, like more kind of internship or entry level jobs. So I think I need to work more. So what kind of thing I need to do right now, because I'm kind of very new into this. So is there any suggestions that you would like to give me?
I already told about what the prerequisites are for this bootcamp. We'll be going into the individual tech stack, and then we'll be learning these technologies right from scratch. So even if you don't know anything about any of these technologies, that's fine. So we'll be covering all the fundamentals. We'll be telling you why this technology is needed, and we'll hold you in hand right up to even start up on this. So don't worry about that. You don't know anything that, if at all.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. But try to install all the components that we have talked about. Get your Linux workstation. It's very important that you open up your AWS account, because
I started with that actually.
Yeah. All right. All right. So you've got one more question from Prasanta, and then after that, we'll continue with the next slide.
Hello.
Okay, Prasanta.
Yes. So, my question is like, I have around 3 years of experience in logistic operation. So I just wanted to know that after completing this bootcamp, can I like show my experience, like 3 years of experience, and split it as DevOps experience, or any other ways to justify this, or I will show this experience as a trace suggestion? This.
All right. So if I rephrase what I understand by your question, you already have got some 3 years of experience, and your question is that by completing this bootcamp, would you be able to justify it as a DevOps experience? Is that correct? Right. Now, I'm not a big fan of just mentioning it as an experience in your CV, because unless and until you can back it up with the knowledge that you have acquired, that won't be useful for you. So when you say that after completing this bootcamp, so there are various levels in the bootcamp, if you're not realized. One is a base level, the other one is advanced level, and then the project level. I'm quite confident that if you're able to complete all the different projects and in the assignments, then you will be able to justify it as probably 1.5 years, not maybe 3. But I'm confident that after completing the project, you will be able to justify at least 1 to 1.5 years of experience working in the DevOps and cloud technologies. But I'll not do any false promises because it will require a lot of hard work. Many people might just not, they might just drop out of working with on the projects that we are giving up. So for people who are really working hard, that they will really reap the benefits out of for this learning.
Okay, got your point. Thank you.
All right. I think we have. So all right. Last question from Jagannath, but I'm not going to take any more questions after in this phase, and then we'll take a 5-minute break.
Okay, sure. Just one quick thing. You had suggested that we download and keep AWS in our systems, right?
No. You don't download and
install.
No. Yeah, that's the AWS CLI. So AWS CLI is something very different than the whole AWS itself. We'll be sending you the links from where you can download all this.
Okay. So right now there's something called AWS free tier that I've sort of gotten into, but I don't need to do anything. You're saying?
No. So both of them are different. We have the next session that we have. It's all on the cloud computing. There I'll be discussing more on the AWS. You don't need to do it. Even if you have not done anything, just open up an AWS account and that should be good.
Got it. Okay. I just did that, and in that it told me, it asked me for a few options, and then I just given this particular reference, and it said that welcome to AWS using the free tier or something like that. It came up.
Yeah.
That should suffice, right?
Yeah. If you are new to AWS, just don't start poking around with creating different instances and different services, because they might start charging you up. There are free tier services we'll be talking about in the cloud computing session. Free tier services they're free up to an extent. For example, if you are using up your T2 micro sort of instance, so these are free up to 750 hours, and also we'll be discussing more in detail. But if you don't really know what you're doing in AWS, I think it's better to keep your hands off.
Okay, I don't know.
Otherwise, you might be in a shock bill surprise.
Okay. I'll rather keep quiet for the next session. Bye.
All right. We'll just take a 5-minute break. I think we've been talking for 2 hours continuously. We will be back in 5 minutes. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
चल चल गाड़ा करो
Is there any question, anything you have? Meanwhile, we can talk. I know people are having a break. So there was the tools. Basically, when you try to install, you may struggle. You may, for example, there was question like AWS or CLI. CLI is how you will communicate in the cloud. So CLI will sit on your laptop or your workstation where you are working, and you can interact with cloud. So that's a different tool. AWS is in AWS, which is your account that you have created. That enables you to create services in cloud. CLI enables you to communicate with it. There was a question on referrals. So we don't offer anything upfront that there will be referrals or there will be committed job opportunities. We actually don't have any such opportunities, but for any right candidate, for anyone who is performing well, helping in the chats, there could be such things that that within our network we can send out the resume that person has good skills. And if there are opportunities, for example, at Infosys, Wipro, or any such company where most of our friends are working in service companies and banks and all other places, that can be worked out. But it's all nothing, no commitment, no promise. It's case-to-case basis on what sort of rapport we build within the community. Yes, Saurabh.
All right. So we start up with the next part. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So can you see the slide? What is DevOps? Okay. Now let's try to understand what is DevOps. So what this whole buzzword is around, and why everybody is trying to look at DevOps, where it originated, what were we doing before DevOps, and why DevOps. So DevOps is not really just tools. So there are lots of different tools that we have been talking about. There are lots of different different sets of what do you call it? The tech stack that we have. So there are tech stack like in version control. We've got Git. We've got Git. There are 2 or 3 layers of Git itself. We've got CI. We've got CD. We've got all these different configuration management tools. So, but by itself, DevOps is not tools. So it's a set of practices, tools, and philosophy together. Now, DevOps also. A lot of it is focused around the automation of all the different activities. So, for example, if you look at just a software development lifecycle, so you've got something in a design, then you've got the build phase. So in the build phase, all these different the code will be converted onto a jar, war, or any sort of binary file. So all that sort of automation. So once a code is built, then you're looking towards security testing those builds. Then you'll be looking at the deployments of those builds. What does the deployment mean? What does a build mean? So we will be going into all these things in detail. But DevOps is a set of it's a combination of everything combined together with Agile methodology. Now we have some more slides on Agile later on. But all it emphasizes, it's the cross-team communication, collaboration. We are talking about automation. We are talking about different teams talking to each other. So in a traditional world, before DevOps, there used to be waterfall methodology. Waterfall was something like you've got all these different phases in software development. You've got a design phase, you've got a build phase, you've got a test phase, and then you've got an implementation phase. So this used to work up till maybe 15 years back, and that was probably the way that it used to be done. When DevOps and Agile came into the practice, it means that we deliver everything in small iterations, and that is where Agile and DevOps, they both integrate with each other. So if you look in this picture, so we've got in one hand we've got a business. where they're trying to actually deliver something. They've got a set of requirements. Now these requirements are broken down into different set of components, where let's say you've got a big bulk of requirement, you just break it down into smaller chunks that can be delivered. And then DevOps would actually come and start delivering these into separate different cycles. So the word DevOps, it's a combination of two words, development and operations. So I think that's anybody's guess that it includes development and operations. But what it actually means is that you've got both the development team and the operations team collaborating with each other. Now it may sound like that the collaboration between a development and operations, it's very, very obvious, but that was not the case before DevOps came in. So what used to happen was that in a waterfall model where you got, let's say, an year of project, and then it used to be like 3 months of design, 3 months of build, 3 months of testing, and then 3 months of implementation. And then it used to be thrown over from the development team who have done the development for a year. And then it used to be thrown to the support guys in the operation. Now, if you have done a year of all these activities, you have changed the software development, and you suddenly throw it into this whole change in software to the operations team. They used to be clueless, and that used to be up till around 10 years back, where the operations team would have no idea as to what the changes are done. So that is why when DevOps and Agile was introduced, what it meant was no more doing big projects. So DevOps and Agile, they don't do big projects anymore. So you have to break the requirements into small little chunks, and then follow the smaller set of cycles. So for example, 2-week cycle or 4-week cycle, and then you start delivering the code into smaller modules. Jagannath, I'm not taking questions any now. At the moment, I'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. So, well, I lost the flow, but yeah. So it was then. Yeah, so the development and operations guys, they can now gel very well in terms of how they collaborate now. In the next slide, let's look at what the challenges that they faced and how DevOps would actually help it. So for the dev challenges, so how the DevOps would address the dev challenges is, earlier the dev challenges used to be that the code deployment time is higher. So let's say when you've got an year-long project, so that would mean that the code deployment cycle is very high. When you have got DevOps, so it means breaking down the requirements into 2 or 3 weeks. And so the code deployment is also, it's pretty quick. It's also very easy to roll back just in case your deployment has failed. You roll it back to a previous point. No more major change in the big builds for the software. So it's done in small iterations. So it's a small piece of code gets delivered onto the production. It's easier for the operation guys to maintain it as well as it's easier for the development guys to do little changes and deliver it. So in a nutshell, so no more big developments, just smaller developments, and then we've got all these different tools which help in doing that. So that is where the DevOps tools fall into it. So it's a set of practice where you don't do any major big builds, but also it is assisted by the tools. So the second problem that developers faced was poor code management. So believe it or not, there are multinational companies. Even I have worked in some of the big, large corporations where there was no source code available for some of the softwares that are being used in production. So earlier, people would just write in code, throw in inside into the code in production. That code would get lost. So that used to happen up to 15 years back. There was no proper version control management. There was no proper labeling to what code has been deployed. So nobody had idea that what version of the code is running in production. So, but with DevOps, you have effective code management solutions. You have got seamless continuous integration pipelines. You do proper labeling. So each version of the code now has a specific label, which would demonstrate as to which version of a specific code is into the production. All right, so not only the devs had challenges, the ops had challenges too. So if earlier when there used to be a major volume of builds, the uptime would be difficult to maintain. But when you have got smaller solutions divided, then you can actually maintain the reliability of a software uptime. So just in case, let's say if there is a rollback required, the rollbacks were quick to achieve. If there is any problem that needs to be fixed, it was easier to fix because they would know that just probably a couple of programs have changed, and then this is bringing up probably a specific error. Earlier, the automation tools were not so effective. Obviously, the automation tools nowadays they're quite much better and effective. It started up, your CI tool started up with your Jenkins, and probably Jenkins was available even around 10 to 12 years earlier than now. So earlier it used to be just Jenkins. Then we had Bamboo coming up. There were lots of other CI tools that were used. We had Circle CI. Nowadays, the most advanced is your GitHub Actions. The tools will come and go. You have to take it with a pinch of salt that you would never come to know all the tools that are available. And we'll have a slide covering up the different set of tool stacks. We'll be discussing this there. The server monitoring was tough for ops. So sometimes some server is down. They would not even know that a specific server is down unless and until client starts complaining. But continuous monitoring is something, and there are multiple tools which enable it. You've got Dynatrace, you've got App Dynamics, you name it, and there is a tool, and you would even never know that some of the tool names which are in there. So, for example, like Honeycomb, you've got Nagios. So many tools are available. Earlier in the ops, feedback was not given well. What it meant was that if there was an error with the operations, what the operations team would do is they would just do a quick fix in their production environment itself. And this feedback was not given back to the development team. So what would happen is in the next iteration, when the software was again done and there was a release done, because the feedback was not given, the same error will pop up again with the production systems. So in the DevOps model, you do have a continuous feedback cycle where the continuous monitoring tools will be there. And also regarding, you have this feedback cycle within Git itself where the code is ensured that it's changed in the next release as per the ops. Right. Many of you might have seen these diagrams. So it's a standard DevOps diagram in there. So when you start looking at it, you start looking at it from the plan point of view. So first thing that you do is you start planning all the changes. So how the continuous integration or the delivery would be happening up. You start coding up. So you have your source code version control. So there are multiple tools which are available for source control. You've got Git, GitLab. You've got earlier it used to be Subversion and ClearCase as well, but now Git is the most popular tool of choice now. So it's a distributed computing tool. We'll be learning more about Git when in the Git masterclass. So once the developer has completed the code activity, the next set is the build. So what the build means is that you have the code in the text format, and regarding the build, that code is understood by the compiler programs. So let's say if you've got a Java program, the code will be built, converted into a jar or WAR file. If you've got a shell script, these shell scripts are to be executed as a part of the build. Regarding the automation, now the source code and the CI programs can be automated within each other. So what it means is that the code repository and the builds, there are multiple ways in which they can trigger each other. So the change in the source code branching can be, that would mean that the build is automatically triggered. The next set is after the build is done, there is quality control and testing. There are many tools which actually encourage that. So we've got Selenium sort of testing tool. which can do automated testing. Then there is a release process. So once the code is released, you do have the deployment cycle. In the deployment cycle, you'll be looking at something like Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Terraform, all these different configuration management tools, which would be provisioning the different resources, both in cloud as well as on the on-premises. So it's not that you have to use cloud when you're using DevOps. So if you are not, let's say a company decides not to use any of the cloud providers, it's still possible to use all these different DevOps methodology, but then you will have to do it everything in on-prem. So you'll have to deploy all these different tools stacks within your organization servers and the hardware. The next is your virtualization, containerization, and that's where all these operations are done. So everything is Docker and Docker oriented. Now, Kubernetes being an orchestration controller for Docker, it's the obvious tool of choice for Docker orchestration. So without that, it's simply a must-have for any DevOps engineer to learn Docker and Kubernetes in detail, how these deployments work, what does it mean by Dockerization and containerization. So we'll be discussing more in this masterclass. And the next set is then monitoring these tools. So monitoring would include monitoring your application, monitoring your infrastructure, monitoring all the different tool stack, all your servers, monitoring how your traffic is being controlled. Are you getting any malicious actor which is hitting up your different servers? What sort of traffic is going on? Monitoring your ports, monitoring all the different endpoints. So there are monitoring would cover everything that is both hardware and software related. So both your application as well as infrastructure. So there are lots of tools which cover up monitoring, and we'll be looking at that in the next slide. Regarding 7 C's of DevOps. So everything is continuous. So whatever we discussed, continuous development, integration, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous feedback, continuous monitoring, continuous operation. So everything has to be automated. So DevOps, why DevOps became so much popular among the organization was that everything was automated. All the builds are automated. All the monitoring is automated. All the different code bases are properly labeled. The deployments are automated. Even the rollbacks are automated. So companies like Netflix, Netflix probably deploys at least 10 to 15 times every day in smaller cycles. So we have got Amazon by itself, and AWS by itself it's a bit of software in itself as well. And AWS probably deploys within its own software as a cloud software. It deploys multiple times a day. So, and only DevOps and deploying it in small bits and pieces that allows it. One of the beautiful things about DevOps is also the scalability. That would mean that you can scale up billions of containers. For example, YouTube runs on containers, and every day about 1 million containers are created and more than 1 million containers are destroyed. So the huge scale that the DevOps provide, all these different tool stacks, it's sheerly it's wondrous. There are other terms that you will hear about. It's not only there's auto scaling, there's load balancing, and also we'll be discussing that in the cloud computing sessions that we'll have. So what do these words mean, and how do we achieve it in the cloud? All right, so right. Now, as I said, DevOps is a methodology. It's not just a set of tools, but so is Agile as well. So Agile is a methodology which helps DevOps being how the delivery is to be done. So if you look at this Agile path, so we have got all these different phases. We have got planning phase, we have got design phase, a development phase, testing phase. Now, Agile by itself is it's all about collaboration. So how would the developers collaborate? So when you see in this DevOps cycle, so you've got all these different coding, building, testing, deployment, operations, all these different phases. But so does Agile actually works with the developers on how do they actually implement all these different phases. So if you look at this diagram here, so you've got all these different phases, and Agile actually divides your DevOps into the separate categories. So if you've got a release cycle, let's say you've got a 4-week release cycle where you're planning to release a next set of code changes. So, and this is probably where you have a project planning phase. Now assume that, try to understand that earlier in a waterfall model, this whole circle would take probably an year to complete, where you have got project planning going in for 2 months. You got backlog planning going in for 2 months. So divide everything, all of them into 2 months. And then you got probably an year of software delivery. But what Agile does is, and because in DevOps, we just want to do a little bits of software changes. So the project planning might take just a week. The product planning might take just 3 days. Your whole sprint, your sprint cycles, so where you set up the team, set up infra, all these. So all these is a specific project is divided into different sprints, and each sprint would run, let's say, just 2 weeks. Then you got these release planning, sprint executions. There are different sort of Agile ceremonies. So why I brought up this slide is that Agile and DevOps, they both go hand in hand. So it's a very much a feedback cycle. DevOps operate at a tools level, whereas Agile operates at a people's level. So so when you look at people, process, and technology, DevOps is more about technology, but Agile is more about the people and process component in that. Right, and this is what the whole DevOps tools is all about. Now, if you see here, there are lots of different tools that are mentioned in here. Now, don't get bogged down with how many tools are you going to cover, or let's say we have covered a Chef, but we have not covered Ansible and Puppet, or let's say we haven't covered Harness, but we just know about Jenkins. We know about Terraform, but we haven't covered CloudFormation. So if you start looking at these, so these are all different set of software cycles in here. So the first phase is your build phase, where you've got your source control, you've got your builds, you've got all these different repositories. So your build phase would be writing up the source code, right? So where you use your Git or Bitbucket or Gitbucket or GitLab, GitHub, Mercurial. So if you know just one of these tools, your whole SCM, which is software configuration management and version control systems, that all is covered. You don't need to know about all these different tool stacks which are mentioned in here. Just one tool would be sufficient to give you a foundational understanding. And it's the same way with all the tools. So there might be just different menu options in different tool, but the basic foundation remains the same. And if you have worked on one tool, you can work on all these tools. So no need to start using all these different tools so that you know the whole thing. The next is your continuous integration. So as I mentioned earlier, so you've got Circle CI, you've got Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity, CodeShip, Travis. This doesn't mention your GitHub Actions. So nowadays we have got GitHub Actions as well in here. So, but if you know any of these tools, so that will give you a fair idea of what continuous integration is all about. All these tools, they execute automated jobs. All these tools, they create the pipelines. We'll go more into detail about the CI when we are doing that. But you just need to understand that if you just know one tool out of these, you will be able to work on any other tool that is mentioned here, or maybe even coming up in future. Similarly, regarding the builds, so the builds would mean that all your compilation, whatever you're using, either you're using J2E or Maven, Packer. So these are all the the compilation that is done for your codes. And then you got repositories. So regarding repositories, so you got Nexus Artifactory, you've got even Google Artifact Registry. There are so many other repositories. So what these repositories do is once you have compiled your software using the builds, the end product of that compilation is stored up in these repositories. You don't need to know all of them. We'll be covering up JFrog Artifactory. But if you know Artifactory, you'll be able to use the same way in any of these repositories. So similarly, you've got testing, all these different tools. You've got Selenium, you've got Cypress, browser-based testing, load performance-based testing, you've got configuration-based testing, security-based testing like Fortify, or I don't think it has mentioned SonarQube here, but that should be here in the code-based. Now, you've got deployments. So that's where you have Chef, Puppet, SaltStack, Ansible. You just need to know one of them and you will be able to work on any of these technologies. So I think somebody asked me a question that are we covering Chef and Puppet? But if you know one of them, there's no reason why you should not be able to work on another one. So it's just different vendors, but doing the similar stuff. Continuous delivery, we've got Go, we've got Harness, we've got, and I've worked on probably out of these, I've worked on Harness, I've worked on Octopus Deploy. But if you know any of these tools, so what they do is they pick up the binaries from these repositories and they deploy it into the production environment. So that's what all these do. So similarly, infrastructure provisioning, you've got Terraform here, you've got CloudFormation. They would provision the infrastructure in cloud for whatever infrastructure your application needs. For security, you've got HashiCorp Vault. So this is your key-based security, where you can have your key value pairs and your secret management. Running is the most important part. So you cannot emphasize on the importance more than we have done. So Docker, Kubernetes, you have to know that. Without that, you wouldn't be able to work as a DevOps engineer. Orchestration, you've got Kubernetes, you've got Rancher. There are a couple of other orchestration tools as well, but behind the scenes, even Rancher actually sits on top of Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is the way to go. Regarding compute, you've got Azure, you've got GCP, you've got AWS, all these different cloud environments. You've got serverless, you've got Lambda. In Google Cloud, you have got I'm forgetting the name now. Cloud Functions and Cloud Run. Runtime, you got so in a nutshell. So this list is huge, and so what I intend to say is that don't get bogged down by that. You have to do everything in here. Just pick up. You can have a look at this page once we give you the slides. But you just need to know one of them. Even for your alerting and monitoring, just one of them is good enough. Even if you know Dynatrace or just CloudWatch, that should give you a fair idea of what monitoring is about. Every tool might have a little bit of edge. So for example, I'm not sure if Honeycomb is here, but Honeycomb focuses, it's here. But Honeycomb focuses more on metrics and traces rather than logs. We have got Splunk, which takes care of only logging. So there are some very, very specific tools there, which will do one thing better than the other. But all these are some log management tools, some cloud infrastructure tools. Similarly for notifications and management. So this list is huge. You will just get tired just looking at these lists. Service desk, events and alerting. You've got project management tools. Notification tools, you've got Xmatters, PagerDuty, Opsgenie, and then you've got collaboration tools like Slack and Twilio. So the list is huge. You don't need to learn each and every tool in there. But what you need to understand is try to focus on what the specific tech stack mean. Just learning one is good enough for you to start learning the other as well, just in case if your company decides to work on something else. But even from an interview perspective, let's say if somebody has worked on Jenkins, and I'm taking an interview for a person who, for a CI. If somebody has worked on Jenkins and my company is working on TeamCity, if the person is knowledgeable about Jenkins, I would hire that person because all the fundamentals are the same. So if I'm looking for somebody on an infrastructure provisioning and they know Terraform, but my company would use CloudFormation, I would still hire them because the fundamentals would remain the same. Similarly, for the Chef, Puppet, Ansible, or any sort of Salt Stack or any of these. So if you know one of these, the interview, if you're the interview that is happening, let's say if you're going for an interview, you can tell the interviewer that I have worked on this tool, and the questions would remain the same, and the interviewer will appreciate the depth of your knowledge in just one tool itself. So you don't need to actually start getting bogged down that some other company is using some other tool. You just need to have the fundamentals right. I've been across where some people have worked on AWS and they have no idea about Azure and GCP, but they still get hired in those companies because if you have an understanding of one cloud, you can easily work on the other cloud as well. And that's been my personal experience too. So I've worked on AWS for around eight years. And then currently I'm working on Google Cloud because the next company where I joined, so they used to do Google Cloud. But that's how it is. So you just learn one, and if you've learned it good enough, the whole tech stack is very portable. All right, so that's the end of today's slide and presentation, guys. So I'm happy to take any questions. Yes, Gaurav. Gaurav, I can't hear you.
Yeah, hi, sir. Hi, Sanjeev.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so just to start off, like I have 6+ experience in operations part. So right now, just coming to question. So like in my current organization, there's the cloud we are using as GCP, and the course is mainly focused why AWS. So like, what should be the better approach, considering like me? How should I go with? Like as you said, even though it doesn't matter, this will help. Like you should have a knowledge at least one side. You'll get a picture others. It's like same, but still, how it should be done.
See, if you are very conversant in GCP, if you know GCP, there should not be any problem with you getting to AWS. In fact, if you are working in AWS, there are two benefits that you will achieve out of it. So first, you will have an understanding of AWS as well. Why we chose AWS was AWS is more popular.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you're going in for any cloud interview and you say that, okay, I know GCP, I don't know AWS, that's not really a problem, but they would expect that because being a more popular tool, it's normally the other way around. So people know AWS, but they might not be using Azure or GCP at that time. So if you are aware of GCP, that's a good thing. But that should not stop you from using AWS at all.
Okay. So,
yep.
Just adding to that, like going forward with this course, like will be as some of other folks were mentioning, Lambda, like any other specific tools which will be related to AWS. So like if I thought like I'll try with AWS also to enhance my knowledge and to help contribute in my team, I'll go with the GCP things this course. So how that will be done? Like how should I proceed or take approach on that? Like that will be something different. Approach might be different on two different sides, AWS and GCP. If any particular services that are there in AWS, right? So
Sanjeev, you
that's
want to take
also.
Yeah. So my opinion on this is that if somebody doesn't have a bias, somebody student learning, starting, they can go with AWS. If somebody like your case has a bit of bias means there is some sort of other factor impacting which cloud to choose. Usually we should go with we are working for our employer or what we are working there. That will enable you to have quick results. Your previously, if you have some learning, that will not be wasted. And also you will be effective in your job. You will be improving there also. So that's my suggestion. Learn the concepts. Even in the bootcamp, the services that we are bringing in, they are not tightly coupled to a specific platform, the EC2 or there will be differences how those will be created in cloud. The practicals that you take, try to do it on GCP maybe. You will be much more effective in your day-to-day job. Your skills will improve there, and maybe in future you can explore AWS if you want to.
So that the training that we'll be doing as a part of bootcamp, it's not really tied up to any cloud infrastructure. For example, let's say we are asking you to create a Linux box. So either you create an EC2 instance or you create a compute instance in GCP. It's both the same. So if we are using EKS in AWS, you can use GKE for Kubernetes in your Google Cloud. So I've worked on both of them. So I don't have any preference on it. So as Sanjeev said, if you're comfortable with Google Cloud, go with that. But if you want to learn AWS a little bit as well, this is a good step up for you as well, because you would know two clouds then. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
There's a lot of discussion. Thanks. A lot of discussions in the chat around DevOps and Agile. So I think Saurabh has summarized. Maybe go through the video again if you get time. But at very high level, Agile is some sort of statement, some sort of process where it says, try to release something smaller, something in 2 weeks, whereas DevOps enables you to do that. Your DevOps tools and technologies, the stack will enable you to build something quickly, deploy very quickly, monitor quickly, get feedback faster, and that will give you the confidence that are you able to deploy. So that's where the difference between a very high mature DevOps company, where they are able to get this feedback very quickly and they are able to deploy much quicker. So that is the difference. So DevOps and its maturity basically allows you to deploy faster. So it enables your Agile process. Otherwise, without this, we will never be able to deploy anything so quicker and able to meet our 2 weeks, 3 weeks targets that we set for our team.
Yeah. So Sanjeev, can I share my thoughts on this?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. So Agile, I believe, it is a mindset to bring that continuous iterations and continuous feedback and for delivering a better value. Right. Now, DevOps are a set of tools, automation tools, where with the help of them, we are achieving this continuous verb, basically, right? Fine. Having said that, but most of the stuff from Wikipedia or any material you go through, DevOps is a culture. So yeah, I really take it as a DevOps is a set of automation tools. And I do talk to people because there was build and release engineering previously. Exactly the DevOps guys. But build and release with some automation layers became DevOps, right? But what about this culture? I have talked to many people. Nobody were able to answer what exactly means culture.
Right.
I'm trying to bridge that gap.
I can take that question. Yep.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So what you mean by culture is, so if you just look at this slide, why this slide is just named as DevOps tools, it's not the whole DevOps. Is you've got all these different tools in here, but it's just a set of tools. Just look at it like a nail and hammer. Okay, but how would you use that nail and hammer is your culture, right? So how do you use these tools? So you cannot just actually start running these tools in a haywire and say that you have achieved all the automation, you have achieved all the load balancing, all the different fundamentals of what the DevOps provides, right? So by tools and culture, it means setting up these different tools and trying to deliver what you achieve out of it in a specific way, right? So you've got separate sprints, you've got different development cycles, you've got product planning cycle, you've got backlog cycles, what you want to deliver in a specific sprint. So all this, the way to execute all these tools is what collaborates DevOps, right? So how do you execute it? So you've got an execution. So if you look at this one, so this is the way to execute all these tools, right? So if you, on the other side, I showed you you've got different tools corresponding to code, you've got different tools corresponding to build. You don't start skipping any of these steps. You don't just put in a code and directly release it without doing a proper build and an automated testing, right? You don't do any planning and then just start doing the build. You have to do that design. So you don't write the code anywhere in a text file. You have to do a proper sort of version control. So you don't skip these steps. So that's where the whole culture thing is all about.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Saurabh,
Yes,
this was. Can I go ahead and complete my statement? Someone is talking. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So this was present way before DevOps also. What I mean, I've never worked complete cycle in SDLC, but I was just telling. Say come back to coding. We have SVN as you mentioned. Way back in 1990s, we have that SVN, right? So planning infrastructure as code. Yeah, there was no IAC kind of a tool, but we could have used shell script to do that, right? Yeah. Now these are all the Terraform, etc. The automated stuff of shell scripting. That's what I believe.
Prasad, you're missing out on the small iterations and releases.
So DevOps should be mapped to Agile to give it a life. Agreed?
I think that's what we spoke about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
To get the true value, it's not Agile versus it. Usually people think that, these are absolutely different things.
Yeah.
It's like you have a Pepsi bottle and then there is an opener. So you need them to work together. Something is enabling you to achieve the value of the other.
Right. Yeah.
So that sort of thing. In culture, for example, culture is a true Agile and DevOps culture is where teams are communicating with each other. Earlier also there used to be source code management in say SVN or some repositories. But in my career, like for 10 years, I was doing some coding, doing some development, but I wasn't aware when this is going to be in production, who is going to put this into production. And I used to never actually aware of those roles and responsibilities. There would be different branches. Somebody would maybe sit on a weekend and merge all those branches and then deploy. And that kind of process used to be there, but those interactions were not there. Right now, the culture is that you do a sprint planning just for next 2 weeks. You have a developer, business analyst, tester, a lot of other roles, the infra guy, and everybody works together. And that defines the culture that everybody is working towards a common goal. They are aware of the requirements at the same time. So your developer is given a requirement and your tester is also given those specifications that you have to test. That defines the DevOps and Agile culture, that people are working in parallel at the same time. It's not that developer will work on something for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, hand it over to someone. So it's all, that is the maturity and that is what the culture is about.
Yep. Thank you there, Sanjay and Saurabh. Thank you.
Okay. The next question from Satish.
Hey, hi Sanjay, hi Saurabh. So my doubt is actually, so regarding the softwares and the installation part, right? So will you guys be sharing any documents where you would list all the URLs of the softwares which would be required to install from our end, or how does this work?
Yes. So after this meeting is done, so all the softwares that we have asked you, so I think they're very, very basic ones. So we'll be providing you this. So all we are asking you is create a GitHub account, AWS CLI, Linux. If you these are just one Google away. Top 3 links will give you, but we can also give you the links from where to download. No problems at all. So we'll share it in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, because see, you have this issue with the Windows and the Mac, right? So I just kind of have this confusion, like how do we run these softwares basically? So if I'm using Windows and using this Windows subsystem for Linux, should I be installing all these softwares in Linux or in Windows? So that is kind of
preferably in your Linux environment. So that you are, while working on this project, you are learning like Linux indirectly. You don't have to spend extra effort on that.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Next question from Muthu.
Hey, hi, Saurav. Yeah, in one of the slides, I think in the 7 CIs, yeah, and the 7 Cs, yeah, there is a continuous feedback that you have mentioned. So where does it fit in the DevOps, the continuous feedback one? The fifth one here, yeah, the continuous feedback.
The continuous feedback. Okay. So what happens is once you have a continuous deployment done, so that means everything is deployed. So that's where I was talking about the operations. So earlier, what used to happen was that if something is deployed, and there is a problem, let's assume that the development team has deployed the changes, and they push it onto the production environment. Now the ops team would just if there's an issue, the ops team would go and fix it, right? Because they'll have to fix it in the production environment. But it never used to go back to the development team. So in the next iteration, the development team will do some other changes and the error will again crop up, right?
Yeah.
So that used to happen earlier. So, but what happens with the introduction of Git as a distributed repository? So all the changes, and we'll be discussing this more into when we are doing the Git branching strategies. So, but what happened is that in Git, the ops team can create a separate branch for themselves and then put the code into the production. And these branches are then merged back into the development. So I'm not really sure how much of a sense would it make to you if you don't know Git. But with the introduction of Git as a version control tool, a continuous feedback can be sent back to the development team on what the error was and how to fix it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Omkar.
Yeah, hi Saurabh and Sanjeev. So my question is, I see a lot of openings for DevOps and SRE. So could you tell us like what is the difference between SRE and DevOps, and like both of them have a similar skill set, and which one is easier to enter? Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Sanjeev.
Okay, so there will be a lot of noise in the industry. A lot of things will be, spoken: DevOps engineer, cloud engineer, operations engineer, SRE, and platform engineer, and all those sort of things. When you look at the job description, the activities that they perform, they are pretty much all the same. These are different ways to, market these different roles. Different companies will have different naming standards. I don't see that should be considered while learning DevOps and cloud, especially at this stage while we are learning, basic of both these areas. SRE in general is slightly specialized role around the monitoring, the operations of it. So you are managing production infrastructure. Sometimes those roles are classified as SRE kind of roles, where you have good automation skills, you are able to take quick actions, you are managing your infrastructure through automation. But that is also DevOps, and cloud engineer roles also do the same. So I don't see a major difference between these terms. But yeah, SRE roles, sometimes they try to relate that you are managing probably microservices, probably Kubernetes environment, managing production infrastructure using automation. That kind of roles are classified as SRE.
Yeah, just to add to it. So if you look at these deploy and operate bits here, so this is what is more focused towards SRE. So SRE stands for Site Reliability Engineer. So what it means is that SREs would help running your production environment so that they don't go down. So a standard task for an SRE engineer would mean creating all these Terraform and all these different configuration management, maintaining your uptime, having those alerting and monitoring tools, so that there is no downtime between your production environments. Any sort of deployment that you're doing, there is zero downtime between the deployments. So SRE is focused more towards on the right-hand side than the left. The left-hand side is more focused towards your application development, as well as doing the testing part of it. So we focused, I showed this diagram. Your SRE is more focused towards starting from run onto the right-hand side. Your app development is more focused from run onto the left-hand side. Yep.
Yeah, so I understood as basically DevOps would be like easier to get in than SRE. SRE would be like somewhat.
No.
Yeah.
DevOps and SRE, they're not different. You cannot prepare for SRE and say that I'm an SRE, but I don't know DevOps. Or a DevOps engineer cannot do an SRE. So they both go hand in hand. So as Sanjeev said, these might be different terminologies. So where I see a specific SRE role is if you are working in a very, very large organization where you've got a huge program going up. For example, like a program where you've got 500 engineers and you've got 20 program managers, then there might be separate application team and separate testing team and separate SRE teams. But if you're looking at a standard organization where a medium to large organization, they probably, you have got DevOps team doing all this stuff, right? So, and from where your standpoint is, you have to focus on each and every bit of it, and then focus later on the specialization. So you cannot skip out any of these bits that we mentioned, and just focus on just one type of tooling.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay.
Start with maybe like, for example, you start with a basic shooting rifle, something, and then once you mature, you get into AK-47 or any complex tooling. So it's managing complex infrastructure at scale. Is some of those roles will be classified as SRE.
Yeah.
Where the scale is high, the environment is fluctuating, and somebody is managing it using automation. But you will still follow the same path.
All right. So the next question from Jagannath.
Hey, thanks. Both of you are looking fresh for a midnight
Yeah,
conversation.
it's midnight here in Australia, so 5 minutes to 12.
I know. Exactly. That's why I'm saying that appreciate your energy and staying so fresh.
Thank you.
So, quick one. DevOps, is it better used for applicable or more relevant in the context of, say, the ERP, CRM kind of things, or is it for custom application or both? That is question one. Second one is with Gen AI and a lot of other things coming up, how relevant or what's the future of DevOps?
All right. To answer your first question regarding your ERP and CRM. So ERP and CRM, they are closed environments among themselves. So DevOps, if you see all these tools, so they assist in working with ERP and CRM tools, but they by themselves are so ERP does not have a specific DevOps cycle. So like if you have an ERP software, it's got a cycle on its own. The DevOps is mostly towards your applications which are Linux based, where you start doing development and then you have infrastructure provisioning. You're running it in Docker and Kubernetes containers. You don't find that in ERP. Whether it's MuleSoft or whether it's Salesforce, they're all different packages among themselves. They have got different configuration, so you don't need to actually go and do any sort of DevOps cycle within itself. So these are all SaaS-based products, which is your. So you just get to use those products in a remote way. You don't actually go and do the development cycles. And your next question was regarding the AI, right? Now, AI is an enabler for DevOps. So there are many questions which are asked that would AI be a competitor to DevOps? So there are tools. So everybody now knows what ChatGPT is. Some of you might know that ChatGPT is now also being used in corporate environments. So there are tools like GitHub Copilot. So what they do is they help the programmers write the next set of code. So I personally used Copilot. What it does is it scans your code and then gives you the next set of lines that you're trying to do. But it will not replace your DevOps or even any of the cloud builds that you are doing, because in the current state of ChatGPT or any sort of AI, as it progresses, there will be a lot more capabilities that it will have. But in the current state that it is in, what we see is that it will enable the programmers to do their jobs more efficiently, like writing up the code. What it cannot replace completely is the security aspect, because no amount of AI, there has to be some sort of visual security which the companies would rely upon, so that nothing is just creeps its way into. So you cannot just rely on AI that it will do the tasks completely. You will have to have some sort of manual intervention in it to verify that, yes, your environment is secure, the production code that you're trying to deploy, even though everything has gone smoothly so far, you might have to do a regression test that something else is not broken. So it's an enabler. It might actually help do delivery faster, but it's not a competitor. So, and when you are up to an AI, even Sanjeev, myself, we have been thinking we will be switching over to AI ourselves. So you're not, just understand that you're not competing with AI. You are on the journey with AI, right? So don't try to stop it in your way. Try to embrace it. DevOps and cloud, they are with AI itself. So in AWS itself, there are around 10. I did a video on YouTube some time back that there are 10 modules in AWS which you can use for AI. So it's text to speech, speech to text, it's image recognition. So there are so many things. So it all goes hand in hand. All right. So we'll be taking just last few questions. So Chris.
Yeah, hi, Saru, Sanjeev. Thanks for the session. Okay, my experience is more around solutions architecture, where I basically have to understand customer requirements and try to arrive at solutions that will work for them, more or less. Though my experience has also been more on the telecoms aspect, and I'm trying to, these days, we try to sell cloud solutions to customers and all that. So, but I look at DevOps as more hands-on, compared to, just bringing up solutions for customers. So I would just like some kind of, for you to intimate me more on how it makes sense to migrate from being a solutions architect fresh to all of this, and how it marries with DevOps. That's one. And another thing is, I haven't had any kind of experience with Linux, even the installation and all. So will you be, I know you said there's going to be a session on that, but prior to that, would it be possible to share like some steps on how to install it? I'm more of a Windows person, so do I need to start partitioning my hard drive or installing a VM, all of that, just to, because I also noticed you mentioned Linux is preferable for running some of these tools that we'll be talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, go for it, Sanjeev. So you have installed Linux on your Windows box?
Actually, I didn't get the question entirely.
Yeah, I think his question was more about that he's a Windows person.
Okay.
And how does he start up doing Linux?
Okay, yeah, that's straightforward. Like that, it's entirely up to you. You can use, if cost is not such an moderation, it's not a impactful thing. You can create EC2 Linux instances in the cloud itself. That could be a starting point. So that will also enable you to learn basics of maybe cloud. If that's the skill you are trying to build, you will be connecting to it from your terminal. The easy approach, where there is no cost associated on a Windows laptop, is you can install Ubuntu using the Windows subsystem for Linux, which allows you to install Ubuntu just like any other app you have, like Zoom or WhatsApp or any other app you have. So it's a ready terminal that you can use, gets you started very quickly. There is no cost associated. You won't learn a lot of cloud things with that because it's running on your laptop. The cloud concepts will be through the other sessions and other process, but you will be learning good amount of Linux on that. So all the commands and all the things that you, for example, to install AWS CLI, etc., you will follow the same instructions that used for Ubuntu platform.
Yeah.
So that's a good starting point.
Yep. And AWS EC2, you've got a free tier in T2 Micro. So I find it very easy to actually start using T2 Micro, because if you're not really using a lot of resources, just running up your commands, if you can even leave your T2 Micro running and it doesn't cost you anything, up to 750 hours every month. But I would recommend that once you're done with it, just stop your instance, and when you start your instance again, it will you can start up from the same place where you stopped it. Wow. So as Sanjeev said, you can install Linux as an app, which will install a very lightweight Ubuntu using a WSL on Windows, or you can also use the smallest instance of EC2 to have your Linux running.
Okay, and thank you. So I was also asking how this makes sense for someone who is a solutions architect. How does DevOps, because DevOps seems more hands-on from everything you've said, and I focus on helping customers, with their requirements. So for the ones who today want like cloud, want any kind of solution on the cloud, I want to be able to, normally I would like to advise them, but how will I relate to DevOps?
Yes. If you are a solutions architect, I think it's mandatory for you to understand how the microservices work, how does Docker work, all the different tools that you are seeing. Please, everybody unmute if you're not speaking. So if you're a solutions architect, it's absolutely essential for you to understand all these different sets of practices. So you've got builds, you've got test, deploy, run. How does it work? How does microservices work? How does APIs work? How do you actually do communication between the Docker containers? How do you actually communicate your between your pipelines? So you've got CI, CD. So if you're a solutions architect, it's absolutely essential that you understand all this. So if you are saying, Chris, that how does it relate to you? I would rather question that how you have been surviving without actually understanding this in the solutions architect space. So it's absolutely relevant.
A lot of solutions that we build, we suggest a lot of automation opportunities in that when we do some assessment of a customer, we look for any manual steps that they are doing apart from architectural things. So we have an architecture in place. That can be accomplished by manual processes and all. We always look for automation opportunities. That's where DevOps will help. We always look for modernization opportunities, converting monolith to microservices. That's where Docker containerization sort of skills will be helpful. When you're deploying on AWS cloud, how AWS services are integrated, how you achieve security in AWS, that's where the AWS specific skills will be relevant. So as an architect, because we all are from that same roles and experience, so all these things are sessions will be relevant to you. You may skip some of the hands-on part if you want to. You may not have to do all the hands-on, but the concepts, the opportunities to identify automation, security, microservices, architecture are all relevant to you.
So Chris, by the end of bootcamp, I'll remember to call you out again and check. I'm sure that you will appreciate what you have learned here, because that will empower you to be a way far better solutions architect.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. So if there are no more questions, I think we are almost towards the end of it. It's about 12 a.m. in Australia. So one last final call for any questions, and then we can just close it off. All right. So I think. Okay. So the next steps.
Yep.
Yeah. So the next steps will be we'll be opening up the Bootcamp WhatsApp for everyone. By tomorrow, we'll share some more links on the documentation that you need to do. Probably do some installation. We'll share this pack onto the WhatsApp channel itself. And as we mentioned, please maintain the decorum of the WhatsApp group and try to just. So we don't have assignments for this session. This was just a preliminary introduction to what the bootcamp would be. So the next set of sessions, we'll just dive down right into the tech stack. So Sanjeev, anything that you want to add before we close down?
No, I think we had good participation. Just maintain this energy level. We have good sessions, hands-on learnings. This was a bit of, get to know you, get to know us, we get to know you, your skill set. Doing that poll and survey helped us. Then yeah, this was just that kind of exercise, not counted as the bootcamp session. And yeah, we have a lot of other plans, all the things that we plan to discuss. We bring those sessions and try to make as much use of those sessions and the WhatsApp group and the community that we have built.
Yeah. So we'll share the slides and we'll also share the video recording of this.
Probably tomorrow. That would be another 12 hours or so.
Yeah. All right. I think we are done for this session. Thank you guys for joining in. So we have participants from multiple countries and appreciate that. Even in US, so some people might have woken up early around 5:30 or 6 a.m. Yeah, so kudos to them.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Thank